away from my Carolina home. Had dreams about the West and started to roam. 6 long months on a dust-covered trail. They say heaven's at the end, but so far it's been hell. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. We were digging and shifting 5 to 5, selling everything we found just to stay alive. Gold flowed free like the whiskey in the bars. Sinning was the big thing, Lord, and Satan was a star. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. And blood lined the streets. Men were shot down for the sake of having fun, or just to hear the noise of their 44 guns. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. Now my widow, she weeps by my grave. Tears flow free for her man couldn't save. Shot down in cold blood by a gun that carried fame, all for the useless and no good, worthless claim. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there.
Hey, 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 YouTubers and friends, how are all of you doing tonight? I'm actually really excited about this show tonight. We have, uh, I'm gonna try not to butcher his name. We have Professor Wayne Aguiar with us tonight, and I told you about the show a week or so ago, maybe two or three. Uh, but we all love. I'll tell you right now. Shh, gonna be a lot of treasure porn show. Yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, and then we're gonna get into. He'll get into some research. Fine juice tonight, friends. All right, Flash fam. With no more further ado, let's get this party started. And you know what that means. We'll be right back. Hey, YouTubers and friends, thanks for joining us for another episode of Tuesday Night Hangout Live with ToledoJess, Dano, the Treasure Vixens, and I. Thanks for the super chat.
All right, and then you come on and
because once I share my screen, I might lose your pictures. I might not see you. So
well, that's okay. Everybody will see you, Wayne. So
that's not the important. I just want them to see the slides. That's all.
right. Everybody, how are all of you tonight?
Wonderful.
Rose, great to have you back. Sorry to hear about your
look,
car last week.
Oh my gosh, look at this, Ed. Radio's on time. Oh my goodness. What the heck's going on?
Man, I need to send that guy some more stickers.
Mark the calendar.
But
doing good. Had a great Easter. I was home and had Dano. Ed, you've been to my house.
Yeah.
How small it is. We had all the great grandkids but one, and all the grandkids but one, which made for a very crowded house.
I bet.
And when you've been an empty nester for a long time, and all of a sudden you got a half a dozen under 5.
That's overwhelming, ain't it?
Oh my, dude. I was like this. Oh.
Yeah, but the great thing about grandchildren and stuff and kids, your kids at that age, it's like there is a time to say, okay, everybody, thanks for joining us.
You don't understand, though. All those people that were in the house were created by 2 kids. We only had 2.
Yeah.
A boy and a girl. And each one of them has given us, what, 6 or more?
Well, maybe we should call you Abraham.
Yeah, something. But yeah, it was a very enjoyable Easter Sunday.
Right on.
My grandkids.
And Rose.
It was just very different from what I'm used to after, especially now, 10 years of retirement.
Right. Now, Rose, how was yours? And I'm glad you're feeling better. And sorry about your car last week.
You know what? It was just, I thought it might have been my clutch, but it was just the cable that connects the shifter. So yeah, it could have been a lot worse. And then I don't know if you guys watched, or Ed, you were there for the live for a little bit, but I ended up buying Angela's car, and Angela bought a new car, so now I have an extra car.
Oh, cool.
Right. Which is great because my daughter's driving the extra car because her car's broke down. So it's all working out.
And you, Dano? Been a minute, buddy.
I had the grandbabies over. We had an egg hunt in the yard and had a nice meal. It was a good day.
Nice, excellent. Judy and I had a nice, relaxing Easter Sunday. I hope all of you, the Flash fam, did too also. Welcome to Tuesday Night Hangout Live. I want to welcome some of the new channel members, Rocky Mountain Live Prospecting and Grandma Kelly's Clean Life, Clean Living. Thanks for becoming a member. And birthdays. We have a couple of birthdays today. Luke Duke's
Aw, happy
birthdays
birthday, Luke.
today. And Nugget Brain Wayne Peterson's birthdays today.
Happy birthday.
Well, sorry to hear that, Nick Moeller. I hope you're all getting better, and it stinks being sick over that time, you know.
Yeah, you've been pretty sick for a while too.
But I see a bunch of people in here. Happy birthday, Wayne Peterson.
Hey, what's up, David Villa? Let's say hi to our chat room real quick.
Yeah.
We'll get on to our guest. What do you think?
Ooh.
We talked about Easter.
Right. We have Michigan Gems and Ringo.
Nice.
Nice.
Cheryl Lemay, Lemay, Lemo.
Tin
Cheryl Lemay.
Man.
I know.
Tin Man, what up, Willie?
I'm the world's greatest moderator out there, Mr. Lodak.
Mr. Lodak.
Lawrence and birthday boy Luke Duke.
Wow, Relic Hunter.
2 birthday boys.
Terry, what's up?
Dan, how you doing? And Don G, good to
Dep
see you.
Spader just showed up. Welcome, Dep Spader.
Hey, Dep Spader. Bill, good to see you. Ohio Relic Hunter and the Greenhorn Prospector. How you doing?
Welcome, Mark Young. So it's first time here. Welcome. Enjoy.
Welcome.
Yeah. I think
welcome
I saw Mrs. JP and the Bulldogs and JP Lawns and More in here.
Right on, right on.
Kane beeping. Welcome.
Kane, good to see you. Music Man Mark Miller, the author, composer of Flash Bash. We'll be hearing that live in June.
Oh, I sent him some. I sent him a few lines to our song. Dirty Wet Woman. Hey, if he takes it in that direction, it'll be really funny and good.
Terry Curry, good to see you here on time, buddy.
Can do veteran, welcome.
He's gonna be coming to Flash Bash also.
Nice.
Excited about Autospheris coming. Oh,
Cool.
Some Flash Bash news. From our friends over at relicrecoverist.com, Drew and Jocelyn, we have a bunch of goodies for both adults and children, and there'll be a Mind Lab Vanquish coming for someone to go home with. So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
CP.
He thought
Michael got the box yesterday. He got
cool,
his dream.
cool.
Hey, he got lucky too because of the backlog. Because what Dave sends me typically are stuff that he can't sell. It's not, they're blemishes. They're still very usable for the most part. Yeah, for the most part, but some of them are not usable as a home mat. So when I promised Michael that mat, when I went through the mats that I had left, they were bad mats. They would only be usable for small projects or something. I didn't want to send them that, so I got a hold of Tim, and like I said, he waits till he has a pile. He sends me more, but he went ahead and made that for Michael, and make sure that he got the dream mat that I promised him.
Nice,
some little goodies in there too.
I need to see if Brewer Prospecting got his from that show also.
And I think I put it in the note. I wrote him a little note. I would get a box built around that map, or build one around it. Definitely.
That's the
And
best
take it
way.
out and work the heck out of it.
Getty's 2, how you doing, Gary and Tom Kingery?
Rach, how are you tonight? Jersey Rach Diggs is in the house.
Yeah, David, how y'all? Good to see ya. Well, we said our to-do highs and everything. Why don't we?
Yeah. Oh, wait, we forgot somebody. We forgot our lurkers.
Oh yeah,
Welcome,
can't forget
lurkers.
our lurkers.
We can't forget our lurkers, and we know you're there. We hear about you every week.
That's
We
right.
know you're there. Come on in and join the fun.
Join the conversation.
Absolutely.
I understand though why some do, and I alert too, but
Yeah,
it's
I
fun
hear you.
being active in chat.
Sure.
Let's get our guest. Everybody, please welcome. Is Professor a title or a nickname?
Just it's just a title from work. Just call me my students call me Professor Wayne.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen and Flash fam, please welcome Professor Wayne.
Hey, thanks guys. You guys are awesome. First time I met Rose, Dano, Jesse, Ed, met you a few weeks ago. Yeah, you guys are amazing. First, thank you for having me. It's like, this is so cool. And I nobody knows me, all right? No one knows me because I'm pretty new on the internet for sure. I'm not new to detecting, and I'll share that with you. Is it okay if I share my PowerPoint, Ed? Can I
By
get
all
that going
means. By all
because
means.
it's going to be a little bit different. I just need to move.
Before you get started though, let me just tell the chat room, if you got questions, put them in the chat room. We'll try to pick them up, and afterwards, when he's done with his presentation, we'll try to get as many questions out to him as we can.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, you can stop me anytime, really, it doesn't matter. I try to design it so we could, stop and interact. I'm going to ask some questions too, so that way you guys can participate. I hope, hopefully you got your favorite beverage and we can get going, and let's do this. All right, ready to roll?
Let's do it.
Ready.
I'm ready.
Let's roll. All right. Hopefully, all right. I'm at the mercy of the technology. It seems to be working.
Yeah.
All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Just a little background. My name is Wayne Aguiar. All right. I actually, they call me the pirate as well. All right. I'm also a hunt master. I'll give you the story behind the pirate a little bit later. 35 years. I actually thought about it. It's actually 37 years of detecting. I started 37 years ago with my dad. We bought our first detector of whites and we shared it. That lasted all of about a week. And then we each had to have our own detector. So we got into detectors, and they call me a detector collector now because I got so many laying around, and I still get the original whites. But I had started a business. Initially, I had started a business, and it's kind of evolved more into not so much of a consulting business, but more of just trying to promote a group, a Facebook group. It's my new group. I'll talk about it at the end. And it's really to share ideas, because nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything. And there's just so much. And I love learning new things. And I'll give you the whole story in a minute, but why I'm here. But affiliations, Nutmeg Treasure Hunters, shout out to them. They were my first detecting club back 37 years ago. And, it hasn't been 37 years of detecting. I wish it had been. It's gone, evolved to lots of different things. Photography, fishing is a huge part of my life, and family. So all came full circle. I'm back to detecting, loving every minute of it, trying to enjoy every minute of it. About a year ago, I joined another club, the Yankee Territory Coin Shooters, another great club, great individuals. Enjoying that experience. I joined the Empire State Club up in New York. I got like 3 clubs going right now. So I've been pretty busy with the clubs. On the bottom left is it says the sport of metal detecting. Another part of my life, a big part, is my 2 sons. So both my boys were in scouts, and they went through the whole scouting program, and I spent a lot of years as a scout master doing stuff like that. I was really happy to hear that in a couple of years ago, 2019, the scouts over at Summit Betchel Reserve in West Virginia. It's like their high adventure camp. What they did was they actually introduced metal detecting to the scouts. This is like so cool that they got the scouts going in it. So I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm over in Connecticut. I didn't introduce where I'm from. I'm from Connecticut, and it's a small scale, but I'm trying to do the same thing with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts here, and get them involved in detecting, because I think that's the future of detecting. And I give a shout out to the Federation, FMDAC. The reason a special shout out to them is that they wanted to shut down detecting in Connecticut, in my town. And I contacted them and asked for their support. And they got on the phone, they talked to our town officials, and they convinced them that it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't a good thing to shut down metal detecting, because we do a lot for the community. Right now they stayed away from us. So I'm hoping it'll stay that way. But a big shout out to the Federation, because they were a big help in keeping detecting going. Because if our town went, I guarantee you other towns would follow. And they were blaming us for stuff we never did. I'm preaching to the choir now. You guys know, like, we got to cover our holes. We're not going to leave holes uncovered. So there are some people out there that aren't doing that. So we're kind of like policing it. But we do a lot of good services for the town and the Historic Society, and I'll talk about that as we go. My presentation, this is just what I'm sitting in front of now. So you see what it is. I call it my command central, all right? Because I got a lot of gadgets. I love gadgets, I really do. And they all have a purpose. I don't go gadgets for gadgets. I have gadgets because they serve a purpose. I usually have like multiple programs running at the same time, because this is what makes everything come together for me. But I love computers. I love technology. It's a little sad, but I got to share this story with you. A friend of mine who taught me some of these research, not everything, but he taught me a lot of the newer stuff, really did not want me teaching, because I had set up an internet site just for teaching. And it was just going to be teaching some of these techniques. And at first he didn't want me teaching at all, because he said, like, these advanced techniques that I'll be showing you, he was afraid that if other people, found out about it, then they're going to be like detecting all around his backyard, taking all his sites. And, it's pretty common. Like, when people are detecting and they find a good site, you ask them, like, where's that site? And they'll say, oh, a park, or, in the woods. It doesn't tell you where it was. But one of the things that happened is he got really sick. And when he got sick, one of the things, he had a reflection. And that reflection was, he had so many secrets, so many things that he never shared with anybody, including myself. And he asked me, and this was his dying wish, and I'm really trying to live his legacy, is to share some of what he taught me to other people so they could benefit, because he felt that it was better to share and leave a legacy than just take it with him to the grave. So he passed, and it's sad. It kind of bothers me still to think of it, but he's a great man, and I thank him for a lot of this. And life is short, count our blessings and just move forward. That's what it's all about. I have a little disclaimer. This is just him telling me, like, he's going to tell me some secrets, but don't tell anything. Disclaimer. People know that some or all of the advanced research techniques I'm going to show you during the course of this presentation, they usually keep them as secrets. Now, a lot of your listeners out there have heard some of these things. I may not be saying anything brand new to people. If you leave today and you heard of one new thing that you didn't know before, then it's awesome. Then I accomplished something. But if you've heard stuff, and like I said, no one knows everything, please put it in chat. If you come up with another idea that I didn't mention, put it in chat. We'll share it with everybody. That's awesome. But a lot of things are kept under the radar. And I see this in the different clubs that I'm at. There's people killing it every month at the finds of the month. And they're not telling you, like, how they're doing it. I know how they're doing it a lot of times, because they're using these secrets. So, no one knows it all, like I said, but my belief is that we can learn from each other. What I know, I can share with you. You can share with me what you know, and we can all benefit from that. That's my whole idea. So for those of you out there listening, and I know some people listening thinking, well, what's he going to say? It's like a magician, okay? They do a trick, right? No one wants to teach you how to do the trick. They want to, surprise you with this trick, but they don't want to show you how it works. I'm not going to give away all the secrets, but I'm going to show you stuff. And if you're interested, you can take this and run with it. There's nothing I'm saying that you can't do yourself. If you're really into it, you can learn this stuff. Initially, my whole premise for my business was going to be to teach people how to do this. The other part of it is some people don't want to learn. I mean, they don't want to get all this technology. They don't want to take in and learn all these different tools. And what happens is they just wanted to go detect. And I totally appreciate that. Some people just want to be given a map and this is where you go. So, that was how my business actually started, was to do that. But then I'm taking it a little further now, because a lot more people have asked me, Wayne, this is pretty cool stuff. Can you teach me how to do this? So that's where we're at now. And that comes from my fishing thing, like teach a person to fish. All right. I can't promise you treasure. All right. That's up to you. I'm going to give you a lot of tips and techniques, and hopefully it'll help you. But I can't promise you the treasure. But to me, that's not the important part of it. The underlying message here is to enjoy what you're doing. And it's the memories we make along the way. You heard that they call me the pirate. Well, this is from our first annual pirate hunt. And I did 2 of them last year for each club. And we had everyone on the beach, and I buried pirate chests. All right. I put pirate chests on the beach. Where can you dig up pirate chests? That's what I did. And I had 18 chests out there. This group, I particularly like this group because they not only came to the hunt, because I was a hunt master for this, they actually dressed up like pirates. All right. We had people in pirate costumes here. This is so cool. All right. So anyway, you see our president here. She's got the sword up in the air. She's really into it. So anyway, I'll give a shout out as we go. All right. Original Game Changers, some of my mentors. This is a Saturday Night Light guy, and I was looking for an animated GIF that kind of says, okay, game changers. I'll leave it up to you at the end if you think what I'm sharing with you is a game changer for you, or for might be for your what you're interested in doing. And I know there's all kinds of different treasure hunters out there. We have that common thread. I'm a metal detectorist. I am not a prospector. I know nothing about prospecting. Nothing. I admit I know nothing. But we all seek the same thing, right? We enjoy doing what we do, and this treasures it. So let me share with you, from my perspective, some of my mentors, some that have been out there and what they've done, and they've been using this technique. So I'm going to show you. So I'm doing this at first, kind of to entice you a little bit, to show you what can be accomplished when you know some of these tools and use these tools. And these people have mastered them. They don't know it all, but they know a lot. And I'll show you. Well, the first image here is 400 coppers collected over the years by my friend. The other day I talked to my friend and I said, how many years have you been detecting? Because I'm just curious. And he said, I've been detecting 54 years. Now I thought 37 years was a lot. I'm a newbie compared to him. 54 years. I said 54 years, because he started when he was 8 years old. And he's been, his first detector as an 8-year-old, and he's, obviously migrated up from there. And, I asked him the other day, have you ever counted how many coppers you had? So he opened his drawers. He's got drawers full everywhere. I'll show you. And he counted them. He had 400 coppers. I can't imagine finding 400 coppers in my career. And this guy does it on a regular basis. All right. Ed, you told me earlier that you like to have some treasure porn. These are hopefully going to entice you guys a little bit with some ladies with some treasure porn.
Nice.
All right. Assorted colonial flat dandy buttons, tomback buttons, you name it, he's got them. And you're going to hear it. My wife is tired of hearing me say this, but I love buttons. I love buttons almost as much as coins. And I'll tell you, I'll show you why in a few slides. But assorted buttons, he's got thousands of buttons, all different sizes. What's funny is a couple weeks ago, he found a couple new buttons he's never found. And for a guy that's been doing this for 54 years, to find a new type of button, he was real excited. And to see him, was probably just as excited as he found his first button. He found an oval shaped button, which he had never seen in his life. So that was really kind of cool. And he hasn't found it, he hasn't identified yet, what it was. He hasn't found it in any books yet. So it's really kind of cool. But I love buttons just because of the design. And you'll see other reasons as well, but they're just beautiful. I mean, they're really kind of cool. Buckles, assorted colonial shoe buckles. These are pristine shape, beauties of craftsmanship, design. The best buckle and this isn't about me, by the way. I very seldom talk about my stuff. I very seldom. I'm here to really showcase other people. It's not about me. But I have to share this one story with you. The best buckle I ever found was with him. And he took me on this adventure. For this time, I'll tell you the adventure. It was an all-day, 12-hour hunt. It was a crazy day. And there's a lot of stories that go with that. But during the hunt, I found my first intact shoe buckle. And when I found that, I was like so happy because I never found it intact one, always pieces, but never the whole thing. And he came over to me and he said, Wayne, this is great. Like he got really excited for me. He wasn't jealous. He was like, yeah, Wayne, this is really cool. Great buckle. And we didn't expect to find stuff because that cellar hole we noticed had been hit before. So finding anything there was like kind of like an accomplishment. So I was like so proud that my mentor said, Wayne, you did a good job. That was cool. So this was his standard collection. He opened a drawer the other day and he started showing stuff. He actually doesn't know what he has sometimes because he's got so much stuff there. And not everything is valuable. It's just collectible. You know, it's all kinds of stuff. You name it, it's there. Pieces of, you know, horse tack, miscellaneous stuff. And he told me the other day, he said, Wayne, I've got stuff in boxes. Like, it's a good thing I opened them because I don't even know what I have anymore. It's like, I get stuff everywhere. So, you know, I'm going to share with you like two different mentors, the different styles totally. He knows everything he has, but he just, you know, puts it in drawers and boxes, and that's cool. That's the way he stores it. But, you know, he popped this open. I was like, I love Chronobells, the ones in the front. I love those. I think they're like the coolest thing. And he had these and horse tack. The other day, another mentor, just on the side, another mentor, I was putting a display together for the Historic Society. Like I said, we do stuff for them to, you know, kind of like pay back. And they wanted like representation of colonial times horse tack. So I had some, but I went over to my friend. I said, you have any horse tack? And he reached down and he had a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket full of horse tack. And he said, have as much as you want. Take whatever you want. And it was just like, you didn't care. He was like, okay, this is cool. This is something really cool. I bet you a lot of you may have these in your collection, but I didn't realize until I saw it, it's like the vast collection. These are like suspender things, you know, like you hold your suspenders. And there's like so many different types. And what led to this was one of my friends found a suspender buckle. And he said, like, I'm not sure what this is. So whenever I get something we're not sure, we just show my friend and he says, oh, that's what it is. Like, no big deal. That's what it is. And then he says, I got to show you something. And then he put this together from his collection of all the different types of suspenders. That's a collectible. I mean, that's a collection in itself. It's like so cool. And then back to his buttons. The other day when I was talking buttons with him, and he wanted to display them. And I was telling him about using like a display case, and I'll show you that in a few slides. So he started laying them out the way he wants to design it, because it's kind of like an art, you know, like when you display your finds. I think it's better personally if you take your finds and you display them for people, because people can appreciate what you have. You know, I'll tell you that whole story later as we go through. But I think keeping them in drawers where no one sees them, that doesn't benefit anyone. I think you could benefit everyone by just sharing and showing people what you got. And he said, you know, like, I don't know what to do with all my stuff. And I said, well, you know, put it on loan to a museum. You've got like a collection here that would be like Smithsonian, you know, quality stuff. It's like crazy stuff. And then he opened the drawer and he pulled out all these. Not only does he have them like, you know, like all laid out like this to display, but he's been preserving them in these special containers, which I thought was like so cool. And I'll show you a few of the real special ones in a few slides. So again, all the designs are so beautiful. And when you think about these, they're like handmade. A lot of these are handmade and they're really cool. Why do I like buttons? You know, people ask me like, why are you so into buttons? And there's a kind of a funny story with that too. I like buttons because you can also data cite. Like I found this, and probably you guys have seen this, or you ladies have seen this before on the internet. Like it's like a dating chart, and when you find buttons and you can see it, how they're made, you can also help that to the data site. Like I know when you drive down the road and you pass a house and it has circa 1700, circa 1800 on it, you know what it is. But when you're in the woods in the middle of nowhere and you get the cellar hole, and that's what, you know, we do in New England pretty much, is like our cellar holes, because I'm into the relic piece. Well, we don't know how old it is, not really. So when you find a coin, that's great, because if you can get a date off it, that's even better. But a lot of our coins are toasted because they've been in the ground and the soil's not good to the coin. So sometimes you have to rely on other things to figure out what it is. So I love buttons, because if you find a few buttons, you can also get an idea, ballpark, you know, is it 1800s, early 1800s, late 1800s, 1700s, you can get an idea of what it is. So that helps. I even love nails. You gotta think I'm crazy. I love nails. Why? Because you can date the nails too. You can use the nails to help date your site. And that, you know, to me, that's the fascinating part of it. So he's got all these, you know, like colonial buckles, you can figure out the date. Military button, I'm going to have I added a few new slides, because a few people are here and heard me talk before, and I didn't want to bore them with the same slides. So I added a whole couple more slides on the military, because I think that's special in and of itself, because this represents people that served. And I think that's, you know, we should be honored that they served for us and that they provided these their life maybe in service, and just to recognize them. I hold military buttons in high esteem because I know who they represent. The George Washington buttons. I know this is like many of you may have these, and that's cool because that's like a bucket lister for a lot of my guys and my friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's like a bucket lister. And Washington buttons, I think, are like so cool because they again have all this, special design. And I just put this little thing in here because I thought it was kind of neat. At the time of the nation's first inauguration, military officers wore the buttons to show support for Washington. Only the elite could afford the buttons, which cost about 6 months' salary. So they bought them in 6. There was a set of 6 for the jacket, right? 6 months' salary. I wanted to figure out what that was. Back then, it had to be serious money, and it was only like officers that could afford it. And today, you get a complete set of 6. You can get like 7,500. That's like crazy. That's crazy amount of money. So buttons are worth something. And the funny story is, I think it's funny. It's my friends, right? And we used to go detecting, and we find stuff. If they found buttons, they were like, no big deal. Give them to Wayne. It's just a button. And then I showed them some of these slides with the buttons that are really valuable, like the ones I'll show you. And now they don't give you the buttons anymore. They're like holding them to them. And they really should, because the buttons are really, really cool. These are like the collection of them. I wish I could say I have one in my collection, and I don't. I imagine that I did. I found one once that had this eagle design on it. At least I thought it was. It was so toasted that you couldn't really say. So I showed all my friends. I took pictures of it at all these different angles. I said, what do you think? Is it a GW? And they said, Wayne, you're imagining it. You're hallucinating. There is no bird on that button. It's just a blank button. But someday, that's on my goal this year. That's my bucket list for this year, is I'm going to work hard to try to find one. Doesn't mean I'll find one, but I'm going to try hard. And my buddy's actually trying to help me now. I'll tell you that story. But again, there's so many different designs, like really, really cool. And some of them are very, very rare. This one in particular, I just highlighted here, $37,000 at a South Central auction house for that button. That may change your perspective. If you just thought of the button as a lowly button, that might change your perspective. It changed my perspective for sure. And the cool thing about this one, this is actually in pretty good shape. The one I've seen from this area, from Connecticut, was not as good as this button. This is a much more pristine shape. It's in good shape, front and back. But just to point out what's kind of unique about this and why it's so rare is that you see the GW written, and then it's got this little floral pattern. But if you see here, you see like what I'm pointing to here, that's a cap. They call it a CAP, a cap. And the really, really good ones that are in good detail, you can see Liberty written across the cap. And that is such a rare find to do this, but that's why they're worth so much money. It's just like crazy. And I know someone that's found one, which is just amazing. I actually know someone that's found the other buttons. Let me just go back 1 second. This eagle design. One of my friends was in a field one time and found a collection of all 6. So we're trying to imagine like what happened. Since there was 6, you bought them in a set of 6, that they must have been on a jacket. Someone took their jacket off, laid it in the field. It had to be an officer, most likely, right? So they laid it in the field, probably forgot their jacket. Something happened. They left the jacket there. Over time, the material all rotted away, and then the buttons were all left. And he went back, and he didn't find all 6 at one time. He kept going back. And after going back, obviously a few times, he found all 6. And they were all relatively close to each other. So it was just like so cool that he found a collection of all 6. That was like wild. He brought me back. I got to tell you this. He brought me back. And I think he brought me back just because he had found them there and he wanted to give me a chance. He knows I want them really bad. But, chances are those are the only 6 in that area. So I'm not going to get another one. But it was nice to go back. I felt so cool just being at the site where he found them. Just like the stand in the spot where he found them was like so cool to me. I just think that was awesome. I'm sorry, I talked too much. All right, see this. Now, if you look at your design, it's hard to get a judgment on this, but this is not much bigger than a dime. It's a very tiny button. And if you have this in your collection, by the way, you might want to go through your collection, because if you have this button in your collection, you've got an extraordinarily rare button. If you look, can you see where it says L-I-B-E-R and then Liberty, T-Y, and so it's Liberty. It's considered, and I didn't know this until I researched it a little bit. I went crazy to try to find this. Rated R8. I guess in ratings, I didn't know anything about rating, but R8 means there's only 2 buttons known to exist. 2 buttons of that variety known to exist. And what they figured out was what happened with this button. It was handmade by a colonist that was supporting the cause during the revolution, were supporting it, and they handmade this button. So you don't find it in catalogs, you don't find it anywhere. I posted a picture of this on a site, and I was getting messages. How much do you want for it? Do you want to sell it? And it wasn't for sale. I just wanted to know the history of it. I just wanted to know what it is. But if there's only 2 of them known to exist, to me, that's like priceless. That's like crazy. And it doesn't look like much, right? But it's very, very valuable. All right. Like I said, I put this in just for fun. You can see it was winter a few weeks back. We were hunting a cellar hole that we had found. And it was my buddy Jerry and I, and we're out in the woods. And we're walking, and we were on the other side of this. And we came around the front, and I was like, oh my God, it's like a hobbit hole. It's like so cool. And I had never encountered in the woods a root cellar before. And that's what this is. So there's a picture. Jerry actually went in. He went in first. I was like, what if there's a bear living in there? We don't know what's living in there. And he went in, and we started detecting inside. And he hit it pretty hard inside. He didn't find anything, and I was hitting pretty hard. I got a really cool signal, and I dug a nail. And I was like, oh man, I was getting all excited. And it was just a nail. But this is a picture from the inside out. Jerry's standing out here, and I just put my shovel for perspective. You're like in a little cave, but it was a good size. I mean, like 6 by 8 inside. It was pretty good size. Well, I started digging, and I don't know if it's going to play, but I could try it. The voice didn't work. It's just, this is how excited I was when I found it. I dug the button, but what happened was when I dug the button, I didn't get the button right away. This is Jerry emerging. When I dug the button, what I found was 3 nails. I had a really good signal. I mean, I had scratchy signal too. It's like one of those that you get a signal, you don't know what to do, but you got to dig it because you don't know. So I dug it, I got a nail. So I said, we're getting a lot of nails that day. So I kept digging, I got a second nail. I kept digging, and I got a 3rd nail. And then finally, I went over the hole again, and there was still a signal, and a good signal this time. And that button popped out. So I was like, yes, I got the button. I was like really happy. And I looked at the eagle, and I knew it was military, but I didn't know what year. And I know the cellar hole was like late 1800s, early 1900s. It was around there. So then I found this. And if you guys, I can put the link to a lot of these things if anybody's interested later. But one thing about Connecticut, we have a button company in Waterbury, and the Waterbury Button Company has their name on the back of a lot of buttons. But one of it was the Scoville Manufacturing Company. And when I cleaned this over, and a friend of mine told me what to do, and he helped me clean it up. I couldn't read the back at first. When I flipped it over, I didn't have a backside picture, but when I flipped it over, you could read Scoville. And then I went here and I found this like chart. And I don't know what you guys think, but I think this button and that button match. And that puts it 1902 General Service. So that's why I was kind of like dating my button. So I knew kind of like where it was. It didn't match any of these. My friend, after I had shown him it, he had said it was probably early 1900s. So that was pretty cool because, again, I could date the site. All right, so I just shared with you one of my friends, one of my mentors. And I want to switch styles now. This is another friend, another person, hasn't been detecting as long. He's done amazing stuff in the short term. I want to say, I'm not positive, but maybe 30 years, 25, 30 years detecting. So maybe not as long, but still major accomplishment. And this was last year, 2021, his silver. I don't know about you, but like I look at this and I go like, wow, it just hits me. He found 189 silvers last year. And and the other part of him that's different is that he loves to display them. And he puts them in these Riker boxes. I don't know if you guys use these and if you've seen them before, but I bought a few from him. He sells them. He uses so many of them, and he sells them very reasonable. And it's just for a display. So at the end of each year, he puts all his finds in a display like this, and he brings it to show at the club, at one of the club hunt meetings. And then he takes them all out, and then he'll put them in folders afterward, and he'll start again for the following year. But this was his banner year, 189 silvers. And then I was saying, this is like crazy. And he said, that's okay. His friend got over 200, like 30 something silvers. And he was like, oh, he's a silver magnet. It's like, wow, if you're 189 and he's got over 200 and you guys hunt together, that's like almost 400 silver coins you guys pulled out last year. And I would say a good percentage of these all came from the same area. It's like 800-acre area that they like to go to. It's just crazy. I don't know about you, but I love that picture. This is how I actually first met him a few years ago. I told you I used whites. I felt bad they went out of business, but I liked whites. And one of the things is I don't talk about detectors. You're not going to hear me talk about detectors because there's a lot more people out there that know a lot more about detectors than I do. And my premise is it's you got to know your detector. That's a given. No matter what detector it is, you need to know it. You need to really learn it really well. And if you know your detector, that's half the battle. So I'm not going to talk about detectors, but this is just an explanation of how I met this guy. Is that a friend of mine, who I'll mention later, told me that this guy he knew was using a whites and he was getting rid of it. He was going to Mine Lab and he said that he wanted to sell his whites coils. So I said, I had just bought a DFX because my friend said, oh, that's really cool detector. And I thought it was kind of like light years ahead of its time. And I liked the DFX, but I didn't have a big coil. So when I went there, he sold me this big coil. He sold me the regular coil. And the funny thing about the standard coil was he wore the ears off of it. If you look at the hinges here, they're worn out. There's almost nothing left of them because he used it so much. And he threw in a sunray pinpointer. And if some of you have used this before, I don't know, but a sunray is just like, it's like a pinpointer, but it attaches to your coil. So you actually get a reading off of it. I had heard of them, but I never had one. He threw it in for the same price. And it was like really reasonable. And then, so we're talking and, you get together with your friends, you talk detecting. So he said, do you want to come see my collection? And I said, sure. I definitely want to go see your collection. So he took us in the basement. And when we went into the basement, it was my other friend was with me, the guy who introduced us. And he said, I want to just show you what I collected. So I was like going down into his basement, didn't know what to expect. I got there and my jaw dropped. Okay. I was like, are you serious? I said, can I take pictures? Because if I leave here today and I don't take pictures, no one is ever going to believe me what I saw in your basement. So these following pictures are going to be a collection of images. And Ed told me you guys like treasure ports. I'm going to give you some serious treasure. So in his basement, those notebooks I just showed you, he had 7 of them, at least several, okay, all filled with silver coins and collection of coins that he has. He makes his own coin books. Like he puts them all by date. So he like tries to separate them all. And every now and then you'll see one that's kind of like empty because it's like a really bucket lister that he hasn't got yet. But he puts them all labeled. And the other thing about this guy I didn't say is that I believe he has a photographic memory. And he says, no, but I think he does, because you can ask him any find and he can tell you where he found it, when he found it, the condition. He knows everything about that find. It's just like crazy. And you saw how much he's found. You haven't seen everything he's found. So he's got not just coins. He's into, he's a serious detector. He's more of a part guy than a cellar hole guy. My first guy, as you could tell, was more into cellar holes, relics. That's what he's into. This gentleman is into everything. So everything but water. I don't think he does much water, but he does pretty much everything else. He does do cellars, but he's primarily old parks. That's what he researched. So when you're in old parks, you find all kinds of stuff. Now he found a bunch of guns. He found, these are like toy guns, but he's found real guns. In Connecticut, I don't know what the rules are in other states, but in Connecticut, you find a real gun, you got to turn it into the police. You're supposed to, because it could have been used in a crime. So they want to figure that out. But he's found guns that go back to colonial times. So, I mean, if it was a crime, it was so long ago, it doesn't really matter. But he's got a whole collection of these like really cool guns. This was just at our recent meet because they had like end of the year finds. So he had like an eclectic collection of stuff. So he had his mixed coins, and I got close-ups of these later of stuff that he's found. But I love the variety that he's found too. And I'll show you a close-up of these as we go through. But he just brought these to our table. He loves coming every month. If you see this little plastic container near the coffee pot, every month he comes in filled with what he found the month before. Now, I don't know if you guys belong or ladies belong to clubs, but what happens is we have like a find of the month, and everything you find the previous month, you bring to the next month. And he always loves coming in with his Tupperware, and we're always excited to see it because we never know what he's going to have in it. It's always like, a few more silvers added and a collection of all that stuff. And that's what we got here. So let me give you a close-up of some of the stuff. So here's a couple more guns. This is all like, last year stuff. So this is a collection of all kinds of stuff that he found. And then he found this little gun that when you fire the trigger, it's like a flame, so it's like a lighter. I thought that was kind of cool. That was like wicked cool. And these are all from, you know, research permissions. Like I said, mostly he does a serious job on this park. He's got this like huge park. He actually named the park after him because he's always there. Collection of knives, like I know they don't look like much, but they're pocket knives. But if you look at these and they're 100, 200 years old, that's pretty cool. You know, that even that they're surviving the stats. It just is display, you know, like he loves the, you know, like setting it up.
I've never one of those guns. Now I'm going to start hearing, hey, he probably used 2.6 like yours.
Oh, he's got all kinds of stuff here. It's just crazy. The other thing is he's not into just detecting. He's also in restoration, and he's actually pretty famous for that. He restores vans, like old vans, and he makes them like new. I mean, custom vans. That's another story. But he's got like tons of trophies. I want to say 40, 50 trophies in his basement, all from his vans. He's been on TV because of his vans. Like he's like really into the vans. Well, you know, when you're detecting, you never know what you're going to find. So he's found a bunch of toy cars, all kinds of like age old, you know, Tootsie cars and everything new, because you find them. So he wanted to do something with them because he likes cars. So he took out his closet. Okay, he ran out of space in his basement, so he took out his closet and he made shelves for his toy cars. So this is like a collection of his toy cars. They're really kind of cool. These are the older toys. Some of these are older toys, things that he's found. There's a kind of a cool story with this horse, this cast iron horse. It was a kid's toy, you know, colonial probably, cast iron. The thinking about this horse is that he found it in the same park, but he keeps finding different pieces. And he's found like he's assembling the horse as he finds the pieces. Every time he goes back, he seems to find a new piece. And they're kind of like all scattered in this one area. So the toy got broken up, but he's really good at putting things back together. So he's assembling this. He's got the rider for it now. He's pretty probably by the end of this year, he'll have a whole thing assembled. But he's still looking for the head for this little toy soldier. Unfortunately, he doesn't. His head of the soldier. This doesn't do it justice because you know, he's got a collection of religious artifacts that he's gathered over the years too, from different sites that were, you know, sites where they had a lot of religious activities. And he's got a whole collection of these medallions and crosses and things like that. The thing that actually caught my attention, and I wish I had done more or better pictures, are the thimbles over on the side. All sorts of thimbles. And a lot of times when we find thimbles in the fields, they're crushed, but he's really good at bringing them back. Like he gets them back to that roundness. And a lot of them are silver. And I always wondered about that. And I have heard two theories. Thimbles I associated with sewing. Sewing I associated with maybe around the home, you know, around the cellar hole. Maybe, you know, people would maybe be outside sitting and sewing. Maybe that would be happening. But a lot of these are coming from the fields. So when I researched that a little bit, I heard two things. One is that when they were picking or harvesting, a lot of times it was rough on the fingers. So they would wear thimbles, and you see they come in different sizes. They fit different size fingers, that they would use them when they were picking so they wouldn't get, you know, their fingers all messed up. The other thing I heard was that they used it to sew the bags, because they have bags, and they would sew the bags afterwards with the crop. If it was cotton or whatever they had, they would sew it, and they would, you know, have the thimbles and they drop them that way. So whether it's that or not, I don't know, but we find tons of thimbles in the fields, and that's really kind of cool. And he has a massive collection. He's got his buckles too. And, you know, I know buckles are buckles, but they're all kind of different designs. But the next slide is like one of my all-time favorites. I like Game of Thrones. That's one of my things. I like that show. I liked it. And this reminded me of Game of Thrones. It's like ornate, you know, I don't know what it was, like some kind of a, I don't know. Well, it's not a badge, it's some kind of medallion somebody wore. It had some jewelry around it, but it had this like really cool dragon on it. I thought that, I like dragons. I thought that was really kind of cool. And then, you know, these other buckles, again, all kinds of different, but a lot of them intact. Like you can see the whole structure is there. Really kind of neat. So, I mean, buckles are buckles, but it's just the way, what I'm trying to show you here is just the way he displays them. It's just like so beautiful. You know, the display cases are crazy. Again, not everything is like historic or valuable. A lot of times he gets tokens stuff too. I mean, you're at old parks, but they got new drops. I mean, people are losing stuff all the time. So he's got a collection of keys and locks and, you know, like ornamental stuff. It's more just, you know, token stuff. It's not really valuable, but it's just collectible. I thought this is really cool. You know, the little tomahawk kind of thing. I thought that was kind of cool. But this thing in the back, right? When I first saw this, I thought, oh my God, it looks like a World War I bomb. Because I remember seeing pictures of like the pilots, they'd be flying along and then they'd hold out the bomb and they'd drop it. That's the way they launch their bombs. So I thought maybe he found like this World War I bomb. And I was like, wow, that's wicked cool. And then it turned out that it's probably not. When I did the Sodbusters presentation, someone in chat said, that's an old toy. It's like the way they used to put caps. They like, I remember like when I was a kid too, having like a miniature version of this, and you'd put a cap in it, and you'd throw it up in the air, and when it hit the ground, the cap would explode. I mean, if you put a cap in that sucker, that's a big, big blast that you're gonna get out of that. That would be really, really kind of neat. All right, this is his collection, not from last year, from another, and more of it just a display because it's so beautiful. Like he's an artist. To me, he's like an artist. The way he like lays it all out, and all the silver. It's just amazing what he finds, and I just like the way he displays it. I just think that's so cool. This is kind of new. He just showed me this, and the reason we're pointing a finger at it, this is actually a counterfeit quarter. He tested it, and it's not a real quarter, and I don't know. I can't imagine why someone would counterfeit a quarter, but it sounds like it was. And he's found other counterfeits too, different coins that they're trying to mimic. And I know today, one of my buddies actually bought some new coins, and they were counterfeited. They were fake. But he found this, and it looks pretty toasted. But when he tested it, it actually turned out not to be a quarter. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But you can see, like, one of my favorite coins is the Barber coins. I love that design. I really think those are cool. But these are all the kinds of stuff he finds. It's just like, guys, crazy. This is actually one of my favorites. Okay, Indian head pennies. Like when I find Indian head pennies, or I see Indian head pennies, they're so beautiful because that green patina they come out with, and sometimes like the fatties. Just I love the design of the coin. I love everything about the coin, and finding these are always special to me. He highlighted it with I think this is a 2-cent piece in the middle, just to dress it up. Like I said, he tries to put them so it's like artistic. But again, Indian heads, I give my right arm for some of these Indian heads. They're beautiful, beautiful shape. Another collection, he's just got everything here. It's like he has a mixture just again on display. There's Indian heads in here, there's some coppers in here, there's some foreign coins in here, there's a little bit of everything in here. Again, just if you like treasure porn, this is treasure porn. Another one, this is really cool. This one, if you look in the middle, I've never found one. That would be another bucket lister someday. You guys know what that one is? Anybody recognize that? You guys, anybody?
Which one?
Right in the middle, dead center. I'll give you a hint. The hint is all the rings that go around it. It's a bucket lister. I've only seen 2 or 3 actually found like while I was around. So you don't see them too often. Recently though, I've seen a few. It's called a Fugio cent. Fugio cent. And it's just noted because of that design around the rings around the edge. When you find one, it's kind of like really, really cool.
A lot of them in the chat know what it is.
Cool. They call it the Fugios.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just got rid of one of those. Did good. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to point it out because it's a little bit different. It's not like your average coin find, but this does show you like what happens in Connecticut or New England for us anyway. A lot of the coins get toasted like this. You can see like they're almost unreadable, and we come to accept that's kind of like the conditions of our soil. It really, really craps out the coins. If time permits, I have a story afterwards. Down here, this clip coin. See this little clip coin, it's like a half a coin. So I've heard of people clipping coins, like you get 2 bits, you get more for your money. But I have a story that goes with this a little bit later if there's some time. All right, so I asked him, I said, like, what's your favorite find? And it's kind of funny because both my friends, both of these guys said the same thing, and they both found similar things but in different locations. And he said his favorite find was this pocket watch up here. It's a solid gold pocket watch. Now he cleaned it up. It didn't look as pretty when it came out of the ground. He cleaned it up considerably, but it's just so beautiful. I mean, it's heavy as heck. He let me actually hold it. And it was like, when I held this, I was just like, oh my God, it's heavy. And it's really, really neat. And my other friend found a pocket watch as well. And he found it next to a stone. In both cases, they were next to stone walls. So they were trying to figure out, how did this pocket watch get here? Well, probably somebody was leaning or sitting on the stone wall, and it fell out of their pocket. And they, it's laid on the ground, rocks got over it, leaves got over it, earth got over it, and get buried over time. And they found it, and it was like an amazing solid gold pocket watch. This past weekend, I went with a group, and I'll show you a quick picture of that later. And we walked through a bunch of colonial fields getting to the site we were going to. And one of my friends got his first pocket watch. I was like so jealous because he got his perfect pocket watch. It wasn't gold, but it was still a pocket watch. And that was like kind of cool. So this is his favorite find. And my other friend said his favorite find was also a pocket watch. So those are bucket listers. But I use this, I included this picture for a couple of reasons. I mean, a lot of people focus on this big medallion, this big gold medallion in the middle. It's like huge. But I like to point out like around it, I love arrowheads and Native American points. And he like I said, I go back, sorry. He put them into the display here because while you're detecting, your eyes are on the ground. And as you're walking, they're not going to detect, but you can find them in the ground. And he knows that I really like them. And a lot of times that's what I do with my son. We'll walk a farm field looking for him. And that'll be the first time we walk a farm field. I'll talk about that too. But when we do the field, if we find him, that's really kind of cool. I respect this guy so much because he knows I like him so much. He took me to a spot that he knew it was Native American and pointed to the spot. Wayne, go over there because that's where the arrowheads are going to be found. That's where you're going to find them. It's like, he's so kind, he was so nice. It was really nice to show me that. But he's got a really eclectic collection of stuff here. It's just so cool. Now I want to show you, these are some new slides. Some of these I've used before. These are new ones I haven't used before. This one amazed me. When I first saw it, I still can't get over it. J.G. Tarver, Texas Giant. Anyone ever see that before? Anybody in your chat? Anyone see that? J.G. Tarver, Texas Giant. I had never heard of this before. That's the size of the ring. Now, I got a pretty good size hand, all right? It's chubby, but I got a pretty good size hand. That's the ring in my hand. It just like dwarfs my hand. So this guy had to be like massive, all right? And when I researched it a little bit, I guess they made these, they sold them. You could get them, but he found one, and he found one in Connecticut. So it was for the Texas Giant, but he found it in Connecticut. So I thought that was like so cool. All right. I already told you I love Croto bells. Well, this is his collection of Croto bells. And just again, how he displays them. His Constanega bells, if I said it right, all the bells. Down the bottom is actually one of my favorites. These are ox knobs. I love ox knobs. They sound so good. And in Connecticut or New England, we have a lot of ox shoes. So I always get excited when I find an ox shoe because I know there's potential to find the ox knobs. And they're brass and they're all different designs and shapes and stuff. And it's really kind of cool to see. And fine because they ring up really, really cool. Well, my very first one, this is years ago, okay? I found one. I had no idea what it was. I just found this like round knob. It had a hole in it. So I went over to my friend. I said, wow, what do you think? And he just looked at me. He said, that's an ox knob. Like, no big deal. Like, he's found 100 of them. No big deal. That was my first one. I was like, so excited. I got my ox knob. And it was like my bucket lister. And he finds them like all the time. Again, this is a more collection. You can see the different design. The other day, I was so cool. I found an ox shoe, which isn't a big deal, right? But I found a baby ox shoe. Like you see like the regular size oxen, like the big oxen. But I found like a baby size version because they had baby oxen too. I never found a baby ox shoe. That was like really so cool. And then he's got everything, like I said, toy guns. He actually found a Derringer. That was kind of cool. A pocket pistol he found. Badges he's found. These 50 cal, I think this is a 50 cal bullet. We found a whole bunch of those one day. I didn't know what this was, a Hames knob. Larry Rivera at Sodbusters told me what that was. I had no idea. I thought it was like a giant ox knob the way it looked, but it's not. It's a special Hames knob, I guess, part of the accoutrement they wear. I guess I didn't know what it was. Again, some of the bells, the Croto bells. Actually, one of my favorite finds, people ask me, what's your favorite find? One of my favorite finds is a Croto bell. Why? They're pretty common. It's my favorite find because I found it in a spot where people said, you're not going to find anything. It was like really hunted out. I said, not going to find anything there. So I went in, my first target was a Croto bell. So I was like, yes. But not only was it a Croto bell, but it had the leather tongue inside and the leather had preserved. I mean, it was withered and all messed up. But the fact that was what was used to tie it originally, that was like special to me. So I have that in a special collection because I think that's really cool. Because you never find it with the leather still. It usually just wears out. And to find an intact one is pretty cool. Now, when you're hunting, you find all kinds of stuff, right? And we're treasure collectors, you collect everything. Well, You can. A lot of things are collectible. Well, my friend was out and he's finding these like license plate tags. So he was finding so many different ones. He said, let's make a collection. So this is like his collection of license plate tags. And it's just like an amazing collection, all the different years. He's trying to get like all the years. That's really kind of cool. You can get a hint in the background. I told you about his trophies. That's these shiny things in the background. Those are all his trophies from his cars. You got this pirate thing there. I don't know what that's about. Again, you know, you find all kinds of stuff. These must have rang up like incredible, but I love when things have writing on them because you can like look it up, like where it came from. And he, you know, he works on the basis that you dig everything. You get a signal, you dig it because you don't know unless you dig it. Even if it's a large target, he'll dig it. So these must have rang up amazing because they're so big. Again, like he's got boxes and boxes of utensils, like silver, you know, spoons, forks, two prong, three prong, you name it, he's got it. But one of his favorites too is not something that you detect because you can't read them, but you find them as you're detecting, is the marbles. He loves collecting marbles, and I do too. We seem to find a lot. I find a lot myself on the beach because I think kids maybe played on the beach with them. I don't find as many in the woods, occasionally in a park, but I love finding the marbles too, just as kind of like an extra find. But, you know, again, it's just the sort of things he's found. This is kind of cool. This is actually a close-up of that other one. And when he first found it, he got pretty excited because it says, it's hard to read, but it says Rolex on it. Like finding a Rolex watch, that would be a bucket lister, but it's probably a knockoff. It's a knockoff. But it was like really cool, like to see Rolex written on it. Whoa, this is really cool. But it was a knockoff. This is really kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool because the research that went into it, this is a different friend. I just threw it in here because I thought it was so cool. It's a match safe. So when he found it, it was pretty toasty, and he cleaned it up. And then he found an article somewhere about it, and it showed it actually matched up the picture pretty well because he didn't know what it was exactly at first. It was silver, and he knew it was kind of cool, but he didn't know what it was used for. And then when he used it, it was a silver match safe. I think that's really pretty. You know, it's very ornate. It's collectible. It's cool. It doesn't, I mean, the cover broke off, but it's still cool. This is a different friend. I don't know if he's out there today. Some of my friends are maybe visiting, and he gave me permission to do this. And there's a reason for my madness here. You know, bullets, everyone finds bullets, all kinds of different bullets, and he found it in the field, a few buttons thrown in and everything in a toasted copper. But this ornament, okay? Anybody want to tell me what that is? Either in your chat or you guys? Anybody figure that out? And I did a blow up of it here. Can you identify what that is? I don't know if you can see it.
Looks like it was a cylinder at one time.
All right, that's a really good observation. Was that Ed?
Yeah.
Nice job, Ed. Your check is in the mail on that one, buddy. You did a good job. It's flattened. So at one time it was round. Okay, I'll give you that.
Map
it was
holder.
Round. What is it?
Map holder. Document holder. Map holder.
Oh, that would be cool. That's a good guess, but no, that's not it. That's a good guess. Okay. That's a really good guess.
Bayonet scaber.
Yeah. It's funny because on my Facebook group, I posted
plate.
This.
Hard to see.
This has a
music holder. Those are some guesses from the room.
Anybody in your chat or Rose? What do you think? Rose, what do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I couldn't guess.
It's round. I'll give you
a guess.
I'll give you
a guess.
What do you think, Jess?
To me, it looks like it might be some kind of ornate trim work, like for a cast iron stove or something.
Oh, okay.
Like
you're right. You're absolutely right. It is very ornate, and it is trim. Not for a stove, but I'll give you a hint. All right, here's a hint. It was really rainy here today. I could have used this today.
Some sort of umbrella.
Yeah, an umbrella.
Umbrella handle.
It's the handle to an umbrella. It's a handle to the umbrella. They call it a parasol back in the day. But this actually has even more significance. So it's an old handle adornment from a handle from an umbrella. Okay. When he found it, though, he looked at it, and can you see the writing here? It says Ayet. If you actually look at this one here, it actually says, it's hard to read, but I'll give you a hint. It says guest. And there's a picture of somebody here. This is very significant. And I don't want to burst his bubble, because if he's out there, I know he wants to write this up for a magazine. So I don't want to burst his bubble totally, but he gave me permission to show you guys. And I want to share it. Lafayette, all right? This is what this stood for, Lafayette. During the Revolutionary War, Lafayette came over from France and helped Washington, win the war, basically. He was an amazing general. And he was so respected in the colonies that when he came back for like a victory tour. When he came back for the victory tour, they made all these like special things in his honor. So this is part of that celebration. I think it was before he died. It was not too long before he died, but it's very collectible. Well, I guess there's a university that has a museum devoted to this guy. And when they saw this, they went nuts when they saw this, because you don't see this very often. It's a very rare find, and especially to be able to read the writing. So he was pretty happy. I went with him to the same site, and I found a sister one at the site, but mine is just plain design. So it's making me wonder, like, actually we put it together because we were hoping that they would match, and they did match, but mine was a totally different like flower, and it wasn't as pretty. And all we could think of is, so it was off of a path. So this must have been a path that people were carrying umbrellas walking down the path, and somehow they left their umbrella, or they dropped their umbrella, or their umbrella broke and they left it there. And a couple 100 years later, we found it. So I think that was cool. That was really cool. So you look at this, when you first collect this, you might think it's a piece of scrap, right? But when you clean it up and you research it, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about, is research. You find out so much more. All right, so this is a new set of slides, and I hid the guy's name and I hid his face because it's like all of my friends. They really are very humble people, and I respect humble people a lot, and I like that. And they also, don't want everyone knowing their name. Some of these people I know out there will recognize some of the finds. I know that these people, you detect with them, but we're keeping their names quiet and everything. But last time I talked, I talked about cellar flows. I talked about parks, and then someone said, "Wait, you didn't talk about any game changes for beaches." And we have a lot of beaches around here too. And this gentleman, I just want to share this with you. I just met him recently, a couple of years ago. And step 1, buy 17 detectors, numerous coil scoops, and other accessories. Step 2, use the above listed at every chance you get for some 40 years. So he's been detecting for 40 years. Step 3, find someone that wants all the trash that you found. Step 4, trade your findings in secretly desired Palladium metallic jewel, a 1999 Porsche 911 Carrera Ford Cabriolet, one of 3,081 made. These are all the rings he found, all right, over his career, over 40 years. These are all rings, gold rings, most of them. And he found them and he traded them in to buy the Porsche.
Nice.
Which is like crazy.
There's my bucket list car right there. Actually, it's a turbo Carrera.
Oh, is that what it is? Turbo?
Porsche. No, that's my dream car. A turbo Carrera, black with the whale's tail. Doubt if I'll ever get it though. But
it's crazy. It's crazy what this guy found. And it was funny because I showed this picture to a friend of mine, and my friend has been detecting 49 years. And I'll be honest with you, this gentleman, of all the people I've ever met detecting, I would say he's probably the best overall general detectorist I've ever met, because he does it all. He's gone from scuba to beach to cellar holes to parks, you name it, he's detected it over the years. And I showed him this. He says, yeah, I bought a car too. He never told anybody. That's how humble he is. I swear, if you looked at all the rings he's collected, he could open a jewelry store. That's how many rings he's found. And he was detecting before, people were, going after. He went to virgin spots all the time. So, he really killed it, and he still kills it. But he's been doing it 40 years too. And he's got an amazing collection. This is just recently. This happened on a recent hunt we had. This gentleman, pouch, ouch, to hold jewels. Here's another question for your listeners or for you guys. What is this?
A tobacco pouch?
That's a Rusack.
Yeah, that's a Rusack.
That's a poke. That's what us prospectors put our nugs in.
Okay. Do you know what animal it came from?
Oh, kangaroo.
That's a kangaroo.
A roosack.
It gives you another
All
about holding your
right.
family jewels. Yeah.
Children,
That's
close your ears. It's kangaroo balls.
when he first
Not
told me.
Dano balls, kangaroo balls.
Yeah, when he first told me that, I was like, disgusted. But this is what he dumped out of it was the jewels. It gives you a new perspective on family jewels. Well, this is what he's found so far this year. He actually works to find rings for people. Like he does this as a service, so people lose their rings and he finds them. But he also finds rings too. These are just the finds that he's had. This is just this year so far, all in the water. He's a water guy. What was kind of cool, this is again a picture of his water finds. Is really, and these are the scoops that he uses in the water. I don't know if everyone had seen scoops like this, but I was kind of he donated a bunch of stuff at this last hunt as prizes, and my son won both of these prizes as his in the tokens. So it was funny because I told my son I needed a water scoop, so he gave me one and he kept one. So this is going to be my year of the water because I never had a really good scoop before. Now I got a scoop, so now I got a really good reason to get out there in the water. So it was kind of cool that he won these. I was like, yes, this is so cool. Thank you. All right. Assorted, those are some previous mentors, and these are some new people. And a little story about each of them. Assorted shout outs and some bucket listers. This is a new friend, Matt. He's also Matt. He's holding his U.S. belt plate, which is kind of cool. And his son, Austin's in the picture here. But it says a huge thank you. This is February 10th. Huge thank you to Wayne and his help in guiding me directly to a beautiful foundation hidden out of sight for over a century. Game changer believer, Matt K. So he sent me that. I was like, made my day. And then also the fact that his son is involved in detecting made my day even more. He got his son a detector. His son got his first colonial. I think it was a copper. He's found some Civil War stuff already because he's down in Maryland. He does a lot of hunting in Virginia, and he's killing it down there with some of the stuff I showed him how to use. So nice. he's doing really, really good, and he's doing a great job. But can you imagine this little kid? He's like 9 years old. What he's going to find in his career? He's just starting now. So that's what it's all about to me, is getting him started young. And he's got a great mentor here. His dad's into it, and he takes him out, and that's really great. It's funny because he said they hunt arrowheads too, and together. And that's how I like to do with my son. But another story here is, I think Austin's asleep, so I can tell you. Actually, he already got it, so it's no big deal. Austin's into everything military. You know, they do Civil War stuff. He likes military. Well, I went with a bunch of friends of mine, and we found this World War II strafing site where the pilots used to practice like on targets of World War II, and they used to shoot these like 50 caliber bullets, like these major bullets, that are like the size of your hand. And I found a couple really nice ones. So I told Matt, like, you think your son would you? I asked him first. I said, would you like any? Because I know he was collecting. He says, I got plenty of mini balls, and he got his own. But he says, oh, my son would like it. So I mailed it to him, and he was like so happy he got those. Like it made my day just to share those with him because it was kind of cool. This is my other new buddy. And it's kind of a cool story with this. I love these. If you recognize these are inkwells. And he's relatively new. This guy's only been doing it less than a couple of years, I think. He hasn't been doing it very long, but he's just amazing. And I said he's got like a mojo. He's got like a karma where he goes out detecting. He kind of just knows where to swing. And I'll talk about that a little bit too. He knows where to swing. He just is really good at heading in the right spot. And, everything is about putting your detector, your coil over it, because it's somewhat luck, right? You got to get your coil over it. You got to know what you're doing, but you got to get your coil over it. He's really good at it. So he wanted to go with me, and I had found this cellar hole that I thought had a lot of promise. I had researched it, actually drove by it. It looked pretty good. So I said, let's try this. So we were supposed to be his friend Jerry, and now my friend Jerry, and myself. And we were going to go. Jerry couldn't make it that day. Something happened. So Cliff and I went, and we got there. It was a little disappointing because when we got there, what happened was we looked at the cellar hole, and there was a lot of metal in the hole. So we knew people had been digging, and they were throwing the iron in the hole. So it wasn't really good. So I said, okay, let's kind of like circle our way out. We'll spread out. So we started working our way out from the hole. further and further out. So a few minutes later, he gives me a call. Wayne, come over. I got something good. So I went over, and in his hand, he had this glass jar. It was all full of dirt. It was really nasty looking. And then it had the cover on it. And we're looking at it, and we're trying to figure out what it was. And then we said, that looks like an inkwell. It looks like an inkwell. So that was kind of cool. So then when we go back to detecting, it wasn't a cellar hole where he was at. It was what we probably think was a pre-cellar hole. There was a depression, but there wasn't really stones or anything. But it was probably a place where they had their first residence, or they were in that area. Because I was finding some like silverware kind of stuff, like spoon or fork. And so there was other activity there. But he, a foot away, real close to this first one, he pulled up a second one. And I'm like, oh, I was so jealous. It's like 2 in a row. And they were both like really cool. So he cleaned them up, and I found this really cool picture of it to share with you. This is the inkwell he found. So it's like, he was like so happy. He was like, he wrote me a nice testimonial for this, like helping him out with this, like some of his best finds. What was that? I'm sorry. I don't know. Someone said something. I just thought. What'd you say, Ed?
Oh, I thought I heard Jesse say something.
Yeah, me too.
You did. I thought I was on mute.
All right. I don't know about you guys, but I love this. I just thought it was beautiful.
It is. It's very nice.
It's different. It's just different. Here's another bucket list. I have not found this. This isn't mine. It's actually, some of you know him, Hollywood Joe.
Yeah, last week's guest, along with Nancy.
Nancy and Hollywood, they're like two of my favorite people. Hollywood is actually the person that got me involved in the internet a couple of months ago, because I said he knows I'm into this, and I like teaching, and I like sharing. And he said, you should open up like a Facebook page or something. And then that's what got me started. And then he and Nancy invited me to be on their show. And they had a live stream one night. And they said, well, we have an hour-long show, and you can come and do it. And I said, oh, thank you. I was honored by that opportunity.
That's where I first saw you.
That was you saw me at that night, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was an hour-long show, right? But after an hour, I was still talking, and I told him I have more than an hour's worth of stuff. Is that okay? She says, yeah, no problem. Just keep talking. If we lose some people, that's okay. People come and go. They get other streams they're doing. I said, that's fine. I won't be insulted or anything. If they want to listen, they can, and listen later on. So that's fine. So I guess we held a pretty good audience for the 2 hours. And after 2 hours, I kind of like reached the end. And I still had like an hour left in me at least, but it was like everyone was exhausted and tired. So I said, okay, we'll just stop. And then I met you, Ed, right? And then you asked me to do this tonight. And I've been like so excited to come back to do this with you tonight. And then Sodbusters, Larry Rivera had me on his show like right after, because he actually didn't go to Joe's and Nancy's live stream. He heard about it from somebody else, I guess. So he asked me to do his. So that's why we all got here. But I hope you guys are excited to see and learn now how these things are found. So I just kind of like whet your appetite with some of the treasure port. Now I want to get into like how the techniques were that were used to do some of this stuff. Now, I don't know, do you have questions like in your chat or anybody? That this is a stopping point I told you about. I can stop.
Well, you've answered a few throughout the show. We posted them in the Zoom chat. Cool. Bacchus, what clubs are here in Connecticut, but unfortunately he already left, but he could probably catch the end part if you want to mention any clubs there in Connecticut where you're from.
Yeah. If you do searching of Connecticut, like Connecticut, or you do metal detecting clubs, there's a site that has like all the clubs around the country, and it's pretty up to date. But in Connecticut, I know of maybe 4 or 5. And I don't want to do any misjustice to anybody. I'm personally a member of 2, the Nutmeg Treasure Hunters and Yankee Territory. Those are the 2 that I am members of, because there's only so many days in the week. But I know there's other clubs in Connecticut.
We learned last week that if you're gonna look for a club, do your research on clubs too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, each club is different. It's a great point. Like, the dynamics of each club are different. The people are different. I'm rather of a newbie in one club, because nobody knows me. I'm just new. But I stepped up and I try to help them. I'm not their hunt master, but I try to help with a hunt. I did the pirate hunt for them. I'm like the vice president for them, just to fill in. It's really just a title, but I fill in when they need my help. But I'm just getting to know those people, and they're getting to know me. I can't say like I don't know them well, and they don't know me well. So I'd love to hunt with some of these people. Are really great people, and I would love to hunt with them. But you get your groups that you hunt with, and you probably understand, and you see this. You have certain people that you hunt with, and have new people get into your group. Sometimes it's difficult, and each group is different, like how they treat people, new people. And I just like the variety. There's no good or bad. It's just variety, and they approach things different ways. So my thing is, I think what you're getting at is check out the clubs. Most clubs you can go for free, the first time, and see what it's all about, and just judge from there if it's a club that you'd want to associate with. I've had people say that they didn't like clubs because they were alienated in the club. They didn't feel like they were recognized or felt welcome. And I'm just the opposite. Like, I talk too much. I talk all the time. I talk to anybody that wants to talk. And sometimes people like that. Sometimes people don't. So it's okay. I respect that. All right. So you ready to roll? I can roll.
And well, you answered the arrowhead thing. Luke Duke asked if you ever found arrowheads while out detecting. You answered that. Robert Dupati, a good friend of mine, asked, what kind of detector do you use?
Okay. I like I said, I don't usually talk about detectors. You can see my hat. I'm wearing a simplex hat. That's probably my go-to right now, but I'm a whites guy. I've always been a whites guy.
Yeah, you brought up you like whites, and they're owned by Garrett now. I hope their factory's still in Sweet Home.
Yeah, I actually own every model except the Mind Lab. Right now, Israel's like, you don't have a Knox? Like, no, I don't have a Knox. I do not use a Knox. And my friends, they all have different detectors. Right. Sometimes I like to use my old whites just to show that it's not just a detector. It's like how to know your detector, that you can still find stuff. So that's why I don't get into detectors, because everyone's, like it's like a Ford and Chevy, everyone likes a certain brand.
Right.
And I'm not putting down or putting up any brand.
Right.
But I'll answer a question. If someone asks me what I use, probably my go-to right now is the Nocta, the Simplex, because I'm doing more into the woods and it's lighter. So my whites is too heavy. My whites is awesome for the field because I got the massive coil for it. And that's great for like covering a lot of area. But in the woods, I don't want a big coil. It's too heavy. And then, I use a smaller coil. So, it just depends on the situation. At the beach, it's funny because I just bought a beach machine. Like, I need another detector, right? I bought a detector just because it was called the Pirate Pro. I thought that was such a cool name. And it's a really, really basic detector, but it finds stuff. I was finding like hairpins on the beach. I was like, this is crazy cool. So just to have fun with it. So again, I'm not a big, and there's people that know more about the detector technology that could talk your ear off on that. And, I like tech, but I don't proclaim any special skill with it.
Digologist, our friend John, have you ever found any Civil War money or tokens?
That's pretty cool. It's a great question. I have, and the funny thing is, like I said, I'm from Connecticut, so you don't usually associate.
He has Philadelphia 4th Cavalry. Seems to be rare. Any info?
I don't know anything specific about it, but if he sends me
do
the
your
information,
research, John.
I could, what I do like to do for people is that when people find something and they're not sure like what the research is, and I'll talk about that, I'll help. Or if I don't know, I have got friends that are excellent with this. Like it's kind of funny because I'll turn it over to them and say, what do you think? And they'll, like, a lot of them will know, or they're into researching it too. We kind of make a game out of researching it. So yeah, if you have a picture or something, I'll give you my email at the end. You can always send me a picture and I'll try to figure it out. But to answer your original question, was actually with Joe. It's actually with Joe Hollywood, Hollywood Joe. that I found my first Civil War in Connecticut, and we were at a Boy Scout field, and I didn't expect, they were looking for silver is what they were looking for in Boy Scout stuff. I found everything, but I found an ox knob that day, and I found this button, and I didn't think anything of the button other than I knew it was an old button until I got home when I cleaned it up, and then it turned out to be a Civil War button. And finding Civil War stuff in Connecticut is not common. You know what I mean? You'll find it, but it's not common. Joe's belt buckle that I showed you a few slides ago, that belt loop he found was in Connecticut. So, you know, you get lucky sometimes, you find it. My dream, Matt, who I mentioned before, who gave me the shout out testimonial, Matt's down in Virginia. He goes hunting there all the time with his friends for Civil War stuff. I'm mostly French and Indian War, Revolutionary War. That's what we see mostly up here in where I am in New England. So yeah, I would drool to go down to like Civil War sites someday, or have them come up and just do an exchange. You know, like I'll show them the Revolutionary sites, you show me the Civil War sites, and we'll have a good time. So anyway, let me move on because I got a lot to cover. If you guys are okay with that. All right, I'm curious to know what I get, and I get skeptics because they say, okay, that's not real. No, everything I showed you is real. Those are real people. Those are real finds. This is what they're doing. And I'll show you how it's real. So what's the secret to those finds? I think it's three things. Research, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about now. Location, I think that's key. You got to have the right location. If you don't have the right location, you're just wasting your time. And I think it's also a bit of luck. I mean, you have to have a bit of luck. Paramount to all of this, connected, the common thread to all of that is to know your detector. Like I said, I'm not here to talk detectors. Whatever, you know, floats your boat, use your detector that is you're into. And as long as you know how to use your detector, then these other things will come together for you. And I really believe that to be the case. So, okay, research, location, and a bit of luck. And I say research is like a toolbox. I like this homeware. I'm not into homeware in general, but I like the GIF because he's showing what I'm saying is that you need the right tool for the right job. There's no magic or recipe that I'm going to give you or talk to you about or share that is going to be the best tool or technique for the job. And you know what it's like. If you're doing a job and you don't have the right tool, it's like so much harder to get that job done. You get the wrong screwdriver for the job, you can't do it right. You don't have the right tool, you can't do it right. So there is no one tool that's universally accepted for everything, but it's a combination. So what I'm going to share with you over the next series of slides are a combination of the different tools that are out there. I don't profess any expertise in all of these tools. There's some that I use more extensively, and I'll give you a couple cases with them to show you how I apply them, just to give you an idea. But you know, I'm constantly learning new tools and the technology that's out there. You told me I could promote. I'm going to do a shout out to my Facebook group. I created a Facebook group. We're only small group. We're not even 200 members yet. We just, you know, kind of new. But the premise of this group, the purpose of this group was to share ideas and knowledge. That's what I'm hoping for. And already people are sharing. They were quiet at first. People were kind of hesitant, but it's kind of like see one, do one. And I noticed that people are sharing more and more. Some people are resistant, and I understand that. I respect that. Some people want me just to do the fundamentals, just to teach the basics, and I respect that too. You got to have the fundamentals too. But I like that we're learning from each other already, and so many new things. So that's what this is about, is learning some new tools. Everyone out there is capable of learning them if you want to spend the time. So research to me is the key. And I spent a lot of time in the library. Although with COVID, I got away from the library because I used to spend every month in the library one day. But librarians are our friends, okay? And the reference shelves hold our treasure maps. So the library is just like a wealth of information. And, you know, I do this thing. It's like my community service to the libraries, to the kids, is that once a month I go and do programs for the library, different things. I'm into like technology, like I said, but I do different programs. So I got to know the librarians really well. So well that if I need something or I'm looking for something, I just ask them, and they go out of their way to help me because I also help them. So that's a good relationship to establish with your librarian. So I suggest that you go there and you make good use of them. They're such knowledgeable people. I mean, this is their profession. This is what they went to school for. And a lot of times they sit, like if you go to the information desk or the reference desk, they're sitting there answering, really basic questions. But if you challenge them with a research question, something that you're into and you want to know more about, and you explain to them. See, librarians are great people. I love them to death because they know library stuff really good. What they don't know is metal detecting or treasure hunting. They don't know that. That's not their thing. For the most part, it's rare to have someone that does both. So it's kind of like a collaboration. We're sharing with them our interests, and we're using their techniques and tools to help us. So it's a mutual relationship, and they like to be challenged. They really do. So I'm telling you, I think you really should. This is an example of a book a reference librarian told me, because I said I wanted to research schoolhouses in Connecticut. I was really interested in seeing schoolhouses. And it was funny because a friend of mine said, Wayne, you really don't want to do schoolhouses. I was like, why? He said, because if you look at the old schoolhouses, like the one-room schoolhouses and all that, then you're going to find that, you're not going to find a whole lot because these kids didn't have any money. They're not going to lose money. You won't find much. And it's probably true. They didn't have a lot of money in the old days. I get that. But I'll tell you this, one of my oldest coins, which is a bucket lister, was a seated quarter that I got at the front step of a schoolhouse. So to me, that was really cool. So it kind of refuted the fact that you can find stuff there. It's there. They're kids. They lose stuff. Yeah. They probably got a scolding when they got home. They got a beating when they got home when they lost something, but they wore... right. They wore jackets, so they lost their buttons when they played rough and everything. So yeah, there's good things. But I'm going to embarrass myself in a second. I'll tell you a story in a minute. This is what I like is I like to look at the books and I like to look at pictures because, from the pictures, you can get a lot of information. Well, not far from me, where I live now, just a couple miles down the road, I've been driving by this forever, right? And I drive by, it's called the Little Red Schoolhouse. And it has 1933 written on the red schoolhouse. So I drive by and I say, 1933, that's silver years. I got to do this. So my son convinced me, okay, Dad, we got to go do this. All right. So we went, we get the permission. It was actually part of the library, and the library's cool with me doing it. So I went, and we're detecting, and we're finding 90s, 80s, nothing old. It was my son did a lot better than I did. He got a bunch of clad, he got a coin spill, he got all kinds of stuff. But we're not finding anything old. So I'm like, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. Either it's been hit really hard, but if it was hit hard, why would there be clad? I mean, there's something not making sense. So I went to this book and I was researching it, right? I should have read the book first. Reading the book, I found out that the original schoolhouse was located a few miles down the road. And in the 90s, they moved the whole schoolhouse to this new location and they planted it there, but it was a new location. It wasn't there. Where it used to be is now some nature food store kind of thing. It's not even accessible to detecting. But unless I had done the research, I wouldn't have known that. And how many people drive by this and they think in 1933 and it wasn't. So that was kind of my lesson to learn to do some research. That's my point. All right, other libraries. It's a wealth of information on the internet. The one valuable thing about the internet is that there's just so much out there. And I don't profess any expertise at all the versions of it, but Smithsonian, I was just amazed at all the research tools that they have that are just free. All the stuff that you could use there. They have digital collections. It said 1.5 million books and manuscripts. That's crazy number of stuff. I think they said it would go around the world if you put all their articles together and put them all together and go around the world 57 times. It's just crazy amount of information in the Smithsonian libraries. This is just a shout out because I wanted to mention this, and I don't know if you guys have ever read this book or seen this or know this person. He was well known at one time. He was a regular writer for Western Eastern. In fact, they republished his articles. Ed Fedori. Does that sound familiar to any of you guys? I'm just curious. No. Jess, Rose, yeah. No, Dan, Jess. No.
I've heard of him.
Ed, have you ever heard of Ed?
I've heard of
his real name
Ed
wasn't
Fedori.
Fedori. It was another name I can't even pronounce. But his writing name was Ed Fedori. In terms of relic hunters, he was legendary. All right, he was crazy. He was sponsored by whites, so his publications were whites. The book on the right, The World of the Relic Hunter. The day I got it, I read it from cover to cover because I just couldn't put it down. And he wasn't teaching you how to detect or how to relic hunt. Wasn't the premise of this book. It was the stories that went with it. And I love stories, you can tell. I love stories. And, you know, he made it from a narrative. In fact, when he used to present, he was a teacher too. So we had a few things in common. He liked the same period. He was from upstate New York, so he did mostly French and Indian. When I bought the book, he was speaking at, what's it called? It's in New Hampshire. It's got a name and I can't think of it. And there's a big thing. George Streeter puts it on, and I just, you guys know New Hampshire.
No.
George Streeter. Oh man, it's one of your listeners will know. And I just drew a blank. It's got like an acronym, but it's like the best of New England. It's Bone. That's what it's called. Bone. I'm sorry, I had a mind lapse. Bone, best of New England. All right. Ed was a guest speaker there. I brought his book that day. And I remember I looked up to this guy. This guy, amazing guy. And I brought the book, and my son, he was only like 8 years old. He was like really little. And he handed him the book, and Ed autographed it for me. I still have the book next to me. And it just said, like, to Wayne, Chris, and Ann, best of relic hunting, Ed Fedori. I was like, oh, I treasure this book. And to meet him in person was just amazing. He passed away an untimely death. So rest in peace, Ed. You're an amazing guy, amazing relic, a legendary relic hunter. And if you get Western Eastern, and it's, you know, there's a digital edition right now. They had a free subscription, FYI. Western Eastern had this free digital thing going on for subscribing. You'll see his articles, and you'll see what I mean. One of the things I got from Ed was that he used a lot of journals, and he was into revolutionary French and Indian, but these are sample Civil War journals for those of you that are into that part. And they're awesome reads. The hardest part is like deciphering the writing because it's horrible. But the good part is sometimes they put maps. And when they put maps, a lot of times the maps are really kind of cool. If you had letters, you had to take letters with a grain of salt, because if they sent letters home, a lot of times they couldn't put all the information in the letter in case it was like intercepted or whatever. They couldn't put all the details of where they were, what they were doing. And they kind of like softened it a little bit because they didn't want their loved ones to worry about like what was going on and how bad it really was. But when you look at their personal journals afterwards, you can see a lot. Now, it's been almost 2 years. I've been researching the French involvement in the Revolutionary War, because during the Revolutionary War, the French came over, as I mentioned, Lafayette and all that. Well, the French had encampments throughout New England, from Boston all the way, you know, to Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. They did this big trek. Well, they've actually mapped out their route. And I've been researching that, and I don't think I have any slides here today with this. It's a different talk. But a long story short is, I found a journal from one of the French soldiers. Now, it was written in French. I couldn't read it, but the pictures is what I was saying. He drew the picture of an encampment site, and I tracked that encampment site down to where it is today. And I brought a small group of people with me, and you know why I was going there. I was looking for a French military button, because if I find that French button or anything French, then I know I was on the site and I found the site. And that's really what it means to me, more than the find, to be able to confirm that I actually found the location. So I've been working on that one for a couple of years, and some of them are historic areas you can't touch, but others are accessible. And that's what I'm looking for. And it was all through journals. Postcards. A lot of people collect postcards. I love postcards because you can get a lot of information from the pictures of what's going on. You can interpret like where the house is located, maybe like landmarks, stuff like that. If they have descriptions, it gives you a lot of information. I just happened on the internet to find one postcard collections that are available from these different places in Connecticut, but I'm sure everywhere, no matter where you are in the country, they have postcard collections for your area that might be of value as well. This is an example of one of my friends. I hope he's out there. He's an awesome detectorist, and I can't shout out all my friends, and I apologize in advance if I don't shout you out today. Just know if you're my friend, I'm thinking of you, okay? Even when I say your name or not, I'm thinking of you. Well, this is Walt. Walt is an old-time detectorist. He's been doing it for a lot of years, and he's a really good detectorist. And I believe he's the one that, when I showed him this picture, this is a site that he goes to. He's a regular, Sherwood Island. And our club goes here quite a bit. It's an old park. This is was the first purchase of the park system, 1914. Did not have public access 17 years later. And this is where the park commission is looking across the creek at illegal campers. So like when I look at this postcard, I'm looking at, okay, can I find this location based on this postcard? So we got a creek here. All right, is that creek still there or is it moved? So I show Walter, he says, no, that creek's not there anymore. So I said, okay, that's kind of cool. We know that. We got cars parked here. We got people standing there. They lost stuff. We got people camping out. You got tents over here. You got cars. You got people tent. So if I can locate this area, we got a really old area. Now, granted, it's on the shore and the shore changes like with the hurricanes and the storms. It's constantly changing. But wouldn't that be cool to try to isolate this area? And, you know, it's kind of like finding where that creek moved to and see where this is. This is all from the postcard. You know, you can see where people concentrated, and some landmarks may not change. Like if you got a jetty that's been there, it's been there forever, that may not change. But you know, postcards can be very, very helpful. I love them. Now, most of you might, you know, like me, you're driving down, you on the road, and you see this like display, right? Historic signage can give you great area clues. Remember to not detect historic things. I don't promote detecting historic areas. Actually, I won't help anybody that tries to do that. Excuse me. But I think these are invaluable. And whenever I see one of these, I pull over because I know it's going to be a historic area. And I take pictures, usually of the display. I'll have my phone with me or a camera. And I take pictures of the maps and hear all the description and read about it because you get a lot of history. But remember, the area that might be cordoned off as historic is not detectable. But the surrounding areas, which are private or maybe state, are. And you know, Treasure has a way of expanding. So you might be able to do the perimeter. And I'll show a really good example of that in a slide. So these signs, even though they're really telling you it's off limits, can be valuable for getting information off them. So using them is good. Now this is a historic mill site. And I love talking about this. And actually I should have put a picture in it. I think I forgot it. A shoddy mill. I don't know if you guys ever heard of shoddy mills before. Anybody? Jess,
a shoddy mill,
shoddy mill. You ever hear
grist mills and stuff, yeah. But not a shoddy mill.
Shoddy, the term, the way you may have heard of it, is a shoddy cloth, because
they make rags, and so they'd be removing buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah, Ed, you're amazing. You're amazing. And I didn't even prep you on this. You're amazing. So the shoddy mill, right? What they used to do is take in rags. They used to collect rags from people, like torn, worn out clothing. And it was too time consuming to take the buttons off one at a time. So they used to rip the buttons off and just like that whole strip of buttons, just take it off. And they used to put them aside. But they would mulch together like all that old material, the old clothing material. And after they mulch it together, they would make a new cloth. And it was real popular during the Civil War to make uniforms from this material. So it was called shoddy cloth. It was just repurposed cloth. But it's also very popular in other countries. In England, it was very popular. Shoddy mills was too. I might have a slide in here. If I do, I'll show you. But what they did was the buttons they used to discard. And a lot of times the mills were next to rivers. And they would toss the buttons in the river. So I've seen pictures, and some of you may have seen this. I wish I had the article linked, but it was Western Eastern. And that was the first thing that taught me about shoddy mills, was that they had some people detecting, and they went in the river, and it was like the river bottom was all coated with buttons, all these different types of buttons, because that's what they were waste. They just threw them in the river. That was garbage. Like today, those are like all collectible buttons, right? But they're in this river. Well, the other thing they used to do is they used to sell them to the farmers, because the buttons were attached to strips of cloth. And it's kind of like our mulch today. When we put mulch in the ground to hold the moisture, the farmers would put the shoddy cloth, the button cloth, in their fields so it would hold moisture for their crops. Well, the material would disintegrate, and then the buttons would be left. So we call them button fields. And a friend of mine just recently found, we're calling it the Bermuda Triangle of buttons, because it's like everything we go there, we're finding buttons. I mean, literally everywhere you look is buttons. And it's like I'm in heaven, button heaven there, because it's like so many buttons. So the best I could figure out is that there was a mill at the end of there's a river that runs by, or a creek or stream, whatever, runs down by there. And I believe that might have been a shoddy mill. So some of this was sold to the farmer, and the farmer was putting it in the crops, and now we're getting all these cool buttons. And that's the shoddy mills. It's great for buttons, great for buttons. All right, old timers. Well, talk to people with family. This is my point here, is just not the book about this, but just talking to people. You know, that one-on-one conversations with people that have been around for a while. Talk to the people that have lived for generations in your area. You can learn so much more than you can from books. So these casual conversations, like go into like a senior center and talking to people that have been around for a while and know these stories. The stories are so rich in history. You can get so much. I used this as an example before, but just a case. I had been wanting to do a farm near, not too far from me. So I researched the farm and I found out like the grandfather of the farm who was on the farm. And I talked to him and he told me so much about the farm, like it was in his family for generations. And then I met with, he wasn't running the farm, his grandson was. But when I went to the grandson and asked permission, I said that I had talked to your grandfather. He was like, "You talked to my grandfather? That was nice of you." And I told him like some of the history he told me. And then I asked him, "Can I walk your field for arrowheads?" And he said, "Arrowheads." I hit him down. Like he said, "Arrowheads. I love arrowheads." And he took out his collection. He said, like the old timers, when they were hoeing the field, they used to look for arrowheads just to keep busy because they were boring hoeing the field, that they used to have a contest of who could find the most arrowheads. So he showed me his collection. I said, "This is great." So I said, "Is it okay if I walk it with my son?" And he said, "Sure, sure." He said, "This field will be better for," like he told me too. He said, "It's been picked over pretty good, but every time they turn it, you know, it rains, you can still find stuff." So my son and I walked it, and we walked it for a couple of hours. We didn't find anything. I imagined we found something. We didn't find anything, but I had so much fun just being with my son for a couple of hours, walking the field. It was great. But while I was walking the field, I was reading the field because I was looking for other like signs in the field. I was looking for pieces of brick, pieces of ceramics, clay pipes. I was looking for stuff that would indicate other stuff was going on in that field. And I knew that would be detectable because when you got hundreds of acres, right, you don't have enough time in the world, and I'll talk about this more, but you don't have enough time to do that. It would be fun, but you'd be wasting your time just to do the whole field. You want to try to isolate it. So if you read the field, and that's an art, and I learned a lot from one of my friends because he could read a field like no one else I've ever seen. He'll go to a field, he can tell you like, this is going to be the spot. He'll just know. And it's just from looking at what you see on the surface, you know, pieces of stuff. He's just amazing. All right, when you see this, what do you think? Ed, give me one. Give me something. What do you think about
Civil War veteran, old tombstone, old cemetery, old settlement nearby.
Okay, you got it. You got a lot of
old church nearby, maybe.
Maybe. Well, if you look at the top line, I know it's hard to see. It says French and Indian War. So it was a little earlier than Civil War.
Okay.
His death was 1787 on the tombstone.
Okay, very old settlement.
but he was obviously in the war, so someone honored him. It was somebody put this flag here, whether it was family or scouts or somebody put this flag here. So even though this was like an out of the way, this cemetery probably, I mean, most of the gravestones were, you couldn't even read anymore. This is one of the lucky ones I took a picture of. But I found a cellar hole about a quarter mile from here. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this was an area that was probably 1700s, late 1700s. And by looking at the cemetery stones, you know, in Connecticut, obviously you can't detect, I don't know every state, but I won't ethically detect a cemetery. I won't do it. And in Connecticut, it's illegal to do it. But you can do the perimeter of a cemetery because a lot of times it was Nancy, your guest last week. She told me that around the perimeter, sometimes people had picnics. I mean, it would be like a celebration of life. They would do picnics, and people they parked their wagons, they parked their carriages, so people got in and out of the carriages. So the perimeter of a cemetery can be very, very useful and very helpful. So that would be kind of cool. But from this, I would gather that the cellar holes in the area probably are dating into the late 1700s. So I used the cemetery on this gravestone to mark my age of my location. Another one, I don't know if you guys had heard this before. I hadn't heard it. Well, I heard it a few years back, but a lot of people, when I say it, they haven't heard this, and I like to talk about it. Bride and groom trees. Is that new to you guys, or have you heard that before?
I've not heard it.
Bride and groom chasers?
Bride and groom trees.
Oh, trees.
Yeah, this is actually taken at it's a supply. It's called the Supply Ponds, which is near too far from where I live. And the supply ponds it's just like an old area, a very historic area. And it was the first time I had seen these. And when I was researching it, reading about the supply ponds, they talked about bride and groom trees. And the history of these, when people first got married and they were building their house, they would plant 2 trees in front of the house for good luck. And they call it the bride and groom tree.
Oh.
Now, over time, the trees would sometimes not survive. They'd wither or die. But a lot of times they remain for years. And sometimes when you drive down a road, you can still see, like in New England anyway, you can see these 2 trees. They kind of like stand out. And like they don't look like they match the rest of the forest there, or the woods, or the trees in the area. And there might be a house there, or there's probably was a house at one time. So right behind this black and white, it's not a good photo, but right behind these 2 trees is a cellar hole. So now from this, I can tell you where the front of the house was, because I know this is the front of the house, the front of that cellar hole. Now, before, remember I showed you that picture of that clip coin, that half a coin? That was a large set. At the base of this tree, the one on the left, that was still there. I went, this cellar hole, these have been hit really hard over the last 30, 40 years. They've been hit very hard. This is one of the ones they told me, Wayne, you're not going to find anything. I went around that tree, and on the backside of that tree, I got a pretty decent signal. And when I popped it out, it was that half a coin. It was that cut coin. I was like so excited because it was the first one I had ever found. It was cut so perfectly. And you couldn't read much out of it, but it was just the fact that it was there. So people had hung around that tree. And a lot of times there's a road in front of this too. And maybe a wagon road that's all but disappeared. Right now, this is still the peak period for us in New England because the briars haven't grown up. Pretty soon, this is going to be all briars and you can't get in there at all. It's not detectable. So we have to time it just right. This is a buddy of mine, Cliff. We just saw this like a week or 2 ago. This is a recent photo. And we were walking down to a cellar hole. As we were walking to the cellar hole, I said, Cliff, that looks really good. These 2 trees are like, don't match the rest of this. This is all new forest. This is all new growth. This was not trees before. This is open field. These 2 trees are there for a reason. And he detected back here and he found a cellar hole in the back. So again, the trees can sometimes be your indication. So cool. This is actually out where I work. Okay, I work in Bridgeport. And I look at this house every day outside my work window, and it kills me because it's this old mansion. I know it's like really old. It goes back to P.T. Barnum days. This is one of 2 trees that's left. This is one of the bride and groom. The other tree is gone. It's been torn up. But this tree, you look at it, it's massive. It's gnarly and massive. I've gotten permission from the people that are in charge of this area to hunt this. And I found all kinds of stuff around this tree, old jewelry. Actually, a friend of mine got a gold ring in the roots of this tree, and I barely touched this area. So, you see an old tree like this, head far. My friends know, like if we go to someplace and I see an old tree, I'm covering that tree. I'm going to cover that tree because that's usually going to be something. People hang out on these trees. But right in front of this old mansion, I've gotten all kinds of stuff too. It's really cool. All right, so this is where I work. This is like I said, I added a laptop because it's portable, and like if you will go on the road or you go into the library, you can bring your laptop with me. So that's what I do. But people ask me like what programs do I use. I use multiple programs and I use them simultaneously. And I found, and people ask me, do you use PC or Mac? I use both. I like Apple because of the graphics are really good. And I like PCs because that's what I use at work and I'm more familiar with them. I'm not a very good Mac person, but I like using both because they have different features. There's my pirate mug. Okay. All right. This is something I want to get into this because I think it's important. Many people tell me they research. I'll ask, what do you use? And I often hear Google. And I say, that's cool. It's a popular research engine. That's really cool. What most people do not realize, okay, and people don't like to hear this, is that Google is very limited because it only indexes 5% of the internet. So you're going to, I'll show you a picture in a second and I'll explain this better. Because I think visuals are better. I'm a visual person and I hope you will understand better when I show you a picture. 5% of the internet, Google will search. 95% of the time, it's missing things. So Google is great and I love it. I use it every day and I use it, extensively for research and I use it, all the time. But I have to accept the fact that it is limited. Why? When you look at the web, the whole internet, okay, it's like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is what Google references. In other words, when it goes and looks for information on the internet, it's just touching upon what's on the surface of the internet, and it's only 5%. The bulk of the internet is in what they call the deep web. This is where, when you hear about people doing cloud storage, patient data, like hospital medical records, that's where it's kept. Research articles, or serious researchers, that's where they put their stuff. Legal documents, financial records, so forth. It's all deep web. Google doesn't access that. In fact, to access the deep web, you have to use special browsers. This is where your librarian comes in, because when you're asking for like deep research, journals, documents like that, they know how to do this. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to teach. The deep web is like a huge resource that's untapped unless you use librarians or you learn it yourself, which is cumbersome. It's difficult. The dark web, you don't want to be, okay? And most of you are not going to be able to get to it anyway, because what happens with the dark web, that's where like the terrorists are. That's where the hackers are. That's a place that you don't want to go into, because these people are malicious. They're not a good people. In fact, to get into the dark web, you almost have to have an invite. Some countries totally ban the use of people getting into the dark web. Like you could get arrested for doing stuff like that. So it's really not what you want. Some countries actually get really angry about people using the deep web, because what they do is they use the deep web and the dark web to get information out about their country. Like, bad things are happening in the country. They don't like the government, stuff like that. They post it and they do it through the deep web and the dark web. So it's not the nicest places to be. But like I was saying, Google itself, 5%. And you can imagine, like, I did this just for fun. The way most people use the search engines is also not effective. And I have a whole video I do on just this. The average person types in a few words, and you probably can relate, I do, and relies on Google to do the rest. So you type, and Google's a really good search engine, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good ones. Google is probably number one. It is number one in terms of use. So oftentimes the results are either too broad or not focused. So here's an example. I typed finding cellar holes because I figured that's what I was going to talk about, right? So finding cellar holes, I got 1,360,000 results in 0.59 seconds. It tries to do it in less than a minute. That's what it tries to do. So each time you do it, it's kind of cool. It comes up with maybe different numbers, slightly different, and the hits are different because it's randomly trying to pick this up. But 1,360,000, I'd spend the rest of my life trying to go through all those articles. It's not possible to do that, right? So you have to kind of like focus. And this is where librarians can help you, or there's some techniques that you can use. The takeaway, here's my message. Okay, Google and search engine researching really needs to include advanced techniques. And to really, if you want to, and I use the acronym game changers, all right? Well, there's these terms. Like every profession, you have a profession, or you have a job that you do, and this job has like words that are part of your job, and you know what they mean. Like military is big on this too. Like you got acronyms and things like, no one would know what the heck you're talking about when you say these words, because like they don't use that language. It's like the language of your job. Well, librarians have the same thing. So they talk about like Boolean searching. What the hell is that? Truncation, also known as stemming. Keywords, subjects, search fields, phrases, stop words. These are the words that most detectors, I don't think, know or use. But these are what make a difference when you're trying to get the most out of Google. Now, librarians do this for a living. I did a video on this, like trying to touch upon this, some of the basics of it, so you can help people do better researching. But it's not what most detectors use. We get by with just putting in a few words. And what I suggest is using different words. If you're not getting the hits that you want, try different words and see what you get for, better results. When you start getting better results, then you're onto something. All right, library, again, I'll move on. Library of Congress. Actually, somebody at the last presentation said I should mention this because they love it. And some of your listeners and you guys might use it too. Library of Congress, 9 million items. It's just like crazy amount of information that's at the Library of Congress. And it's all free. We're paying for this. Your taxes are paying for this. Well, Library of Congress. Library of Congress, a couple of the things when you get into it, like the digital collections. The reason I pulled this up is some things that might be of interest to some of you. The Civil War maps, like you can get Civil War maps out of there, really kind of cool. And these are really old maps. I pulled this one out, railroad maps, 1828 to 1900. So railroad maps are really helpful. Sanborn maps. Sanborn maps, if you haven't heard that before, is insurance maps. And the insurance maps, they put that together when they were trying to figure out like, insuring properties, they put together these really detailed maps of properties. It was like the first thing to identify properties were the Sanborn maps. Those are also there. So there's a wealth of information if you want to tap into this resource. And then, of course, Ed, this is you, buddy.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Prospecting. This is perfect timing. This is Ed. Shout out to Ed. Shout out to Ed, because Prospecting 101. Ed, when I was going to do this, when I was preparing for this talk with you guys today, I didn't know anything about prospecting. I told you. So I went to the expert. I went to you. And
far from an expert.
Well, you're humble, and I like that about you, Ed. You're really humble. But that guy you mentioned is having his birthday. Shout out, happy birthday to Wayne. I like your first name, Wayne Peterson, or is that his name? I understand, Nick. He's the man for prospecting. What is it? I wrote it down. Worldwide Association for Treasure Seekers. I guess he's connected with that.
Yeah, he's the president of Worldwide. Yeah.
I was like so impressed by his credentials, but you guys know the research for the prospecting. I'm not even going to go there. But what I did was I went through your presentation. It was excellent, by the way. Really, shout out to Ed. Check out this video. It's really good video. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's really good. This is on website. I think it was a year ago you did it. Yeah, a year ago, 52 minutes. So it's a lot shorter than mine, but you have a lot of information. And stuff you talked about, I picked up from that was that, and I added it here because I never talked about this before, was Land Matters. I guess that was a really cool site, and particularly good site because for people that are into the mining aspect of prospecting, what I found was there was maps here, all kinds of different topical map collections. I don't use topographical a whole lot, so I can't, profess any expertise with that. But I noticed there were topo maps here, land status maps, geology maps, mineral maps, mine maps. One of the things I took out of your talk, Ed, was that places to go, one of the things about places to go are places that people have found treasure before. Right. And that's a really good point, because if it's there, you've got like an established record of finding it, and they can't find it all. So going back to places like that is like really cool. I thought that was great. And then I saw these mind maps. I had to throw this in here because it said U.S. mind maps currently available. It was like so cool. If you're into this, I'm like getting into the.
I love maps of all kinds. They're a great research tool.
Well, I wish we had more mining in Connecticut, but there's not a whole lot. You don't think of gold mining here. There are some precious metals here in New England that people do, like, you come across stuff like that. And I'm going to mention something afterwards about mines in Connecticut. That was a really cool thing I just learned from a friend of mine about mines in Connecticut. And then there's mining claims. I thought this was an awesome site on Diggings site. You turned me on to that one. The digging site for mining claims. That was like really kind of cool. And then, just to go on, National Archives, if you look at this National Archives, it's all kinds of information, but research for records, explanations, history through documents, photos, and records. Like I said, photos can be so valuable because photos can give you a lot of tips on things. I like to use photos. I'll show you a case. E-history, depending on where you are, and I was asking you like where you're all from. Like in Connecticut, I use UConn a lot, University of Connecticut. That's a real popular site because they have a lot of materials related to Connecticut or New England that I can use. But I was just doing a search around the country, and I found that there's other states. Every state has a university that also has the same kinds of stuff. And they have articles, research things, and they're all free basically to access. It's like their libraries. Ohio State has a really good one for e-history. I've heard a lot of good things. When I looked at this one, and this was at Tufts University, this one I caught my eye because it had battles and leaders of the Civil War, opening battles, volume 1. If I was into Civil War, hunting, if it was in Connecticut, then I would be reading this in a heartbeat just to see what they had to say about the battles and leaders, opening battles, and like read about when maybe they have some maps and pictures. It would be awesome. Pictorial field book of Civil War, volume 1. Pictorial. I love pictures. That would be like really cool. So like, I'm just telling you, this stuff is out there. What else you got? Okay, mapping tools. I want to get into some application stuff. I added this too because someone mentioned they wanted to see it. Plat maps, and they call them a lot of different things. And I was trying to find it. There's another name. There's a lot of internet sites. There's some free subscriptions, and then there's things you can pay for. And I made a mistake. I'll be honest. I made a mistake. I paid for one, and I found out I could have got it for free afterwards. But you learn from your mistakes. But I like to know who the property owners are. And when you can find property owners from plat maps, each of your states, your towns or cities often have these records. They're free. and you can get the land records. You can see who owns what. So if you're asking for permissions, you know where to go for the permissions. And talking permissions is a whole nother lecture in itself. But finding out who owns the property is kind of a big deal. And there's a lot of apps that do that. They call it GIS, so Global Information Systems, and a lot of towns and cities have this, and you can check with their the land office there to get this information. So it is available to you. Plat maps, I think, are useful. As I said, search around because you don't always have to pay for them. A lot of it is free. I wasn't going to say this, but I'll say it. I was helping somebody. Someone asked me, they were in another state, and they asked me, Wayne, can you help me find out information about this? I need it right away. So I said, okay, I'll try to help you out. So I went online and I was trying to get a property record on this house. He wanted to know how old it was. So it said something like US property records, right? I said, oh, this is cool. So I went in, I put all the information about where he was and all that. And they said, okay, we have your document. It's going to cost you $1.25 to print the document. So I'm like, well, wait, this should be free. All right, but maybe there's a service charge because they're using their service. So like an idiot that I am, I paid the $1, I put my credit card out there, and then I didn't get my map or my description. So I'm like, what's up with this? So I called customer service. I'm talking to somebody in Asia, all right? And this guy obviously didn't speak English, and I didn't understand what he was saying. I was getting scammed. So I ended up calling my credit card company and canceling my credit card and getting rid of all that because this was a legitimate scam and I fell for it. So be very careful about, like good deals and stuff. And my son said, don't say anything, Dad, because they're going to get after you. They're going to have all your information. They're going to, get you. But, it was inconvenient. I had to cancel a credit card, but be careful what you try to, purchase online. If it's too good to be true, sometimes it is. All right. I think a lot of you probably are familiar with this. Historic MapWorks, it's very popular. There's a lot of YouTube videos about it, very good videos about it. There's a free and a paid version. There's no reason to pay for it. The people that pay for it, maybe if you want to print out these beautiful maps, and I know people print them out and frame them and they sell them. So they do that because they're actually gorgeous. But I don't recommend, for our purposes, you can use the historic maps, the free version, and it's fine. And you can do overlays, which is the cool thing, because you can overlay the old maps with the new maps, and I'll show you that. So I just did one in Connecticut. So I just did a selection from Connecticut. I did a town in Connecticut that I was interested to show you. So I just was picking one of our towns, had them. And so the thing is about these maps, maps are usually inaccurate. First of all, they were hand drawn. For their time, they were pretty cool that they were able to, put these together. But a lot of times things aren't going to be exact. So the inherent problem with maps is that they're often not accurate. When you overlay them with current maps, the roads don't always match. Sometimes they're new roads, sometimes they're non-existing. The rivers don't match, stuff don't match, but sometimes you get lucky and you can get some good ones. And I got lucky today. This was the old Haddam map, and I overlaid it with the current map. So you can see this is the historic map. I downloaded it, and you can do layers, is what they call it, layers. So you have layers of different maps, and you can see the map underneath it, and you can make it more visible, less visible, but you can match stuff up, which is kind of cool. The historic map, if you look at this real closely, you see all these black squares. I don't know if you've all seen it before. If you have, bear with me. If you haven't, then you might find this interesting. But if you look at each of these black dots, they represent homes. These are where homes were located. Now, if I like schools, right? So it says Tollgate School. Oh, now I know where the Tollgate School was. That's a really old school. That's really cool. When I looked at this, I see some names pop up a lot. Like what was the name I saw? Oh, Brainerd. Brainerd's like a huge name in Connecticut. They're very popular name. And I noticed on this side of the river, this is the Connecticut River, by the way, running here. This is the Connecticut Valley Railroad. Now, I did this on Sodbusters. So Ed, you may have heard this before, or I might have done it with Nancy and Joe. But see this large rectangular structure right here next to the railroad? What do you think that is? Rose, what do you think that is?
Railroad Depot.
Yeah,
you guys got it. Yeah, you got it. I'll send you a sticker in the mail. This is cool. I don't have any stickers. I'll give you one of my collecting that someone gave me. But that's a railroad depot. That's not there anymore. So we know that if we wanted to try to locate that, there was a road running here, right? So that's kind of cool. And there was actually, when I researched it, there was 2 railroad depots. So there was that one and another one. That would be like a real cool place. Now that doesn't mean no one has ever hit it before. They probably have, but it's kind of cool to go there and try. The other thing, this is the river, and this whole area is Hatta Meadow State Park. There's a whole story about this, but just a quick version of it. You notice there's no houses here. The reason there's no houses, this is pasture land, because this area floods.
Yep.
The river overflows into this
Right.
area here. It's very low and it
Part
floods.
of the floodplain.
Exactly. And when you look on this side, see how it's high? You can see houses along this side. Whoops. Whoop, come back. I get too excited. So there's houses on this side, but the floodplain over here. Well, this is all overgrown with brush. Along this floodplain is all overgrown with brush. One of my friends noticed that they cut all the brush down. And he said, you know, he actually came to our club meeting and he said at the club meeting, he found some really cool stuff. Like, I don't know what you consider cool. I consider cool like old silver. Like he was finding Spanish reals, which are really, really cool. And he was finding them over here and he shared, you know, most people would just say, oh, I found them in a park. No, where? But he told us where. And I think that's good karma because he's still been the one killing it, but he's had shared with other people because this is a big piece of property. Well, right now is the optimal time because the brush was all cut. It was always briars, so you couldn't get in there. So people couldn't detect, but the state went in and they cut it all back. So now we got a great area to detect. The only problem is because this is a floodplain that toasts the coins. Like you can't really, they're almost dateless because they're just so, you know, eroded from the soil being wet,
Yeah.
probably acidic or whatever in the soil, but it's killing the coins. But this is what the park looks like today. And like I said, there's actually a lot more to this. Back in the day, this was actually meadows. It was pasture land. All the way back to Native Americans, they planted this area. It was very rich soil. There was actually a pier here, and there was a dock here, and there was a series of stores here. All the shipping. This is a big shipping port. None of those buildings exist anymore. So that's why they're finding these old coins, is because this used to be all developed. It was all like stores, like old, you know, port stores were there, but now it's all overgrown. It's really cool. All right, so this is just a close-up of it. That's the railroad up. Know that. All right, moving on. This is like I was saying, UConn. I worked for UConn for like 20 years. And then they closed my program. I thought I was going to retire, but they ended up closing my program, and I moved. That's when I moved to Bridgeport. But I take no claim for this. Okay, I just thank UConn for doing it because this was really cool. This is what my friend says, Wayne, you can't talk about, because if you talk about this, people are going to hate you, and it's going to be why. Because it's like this is one of the secrets that people don't like to share. And it was actually Joe that said it, Hollywood Joe. He said, Wayne, don't mention this word. So I'm going to tell you the word is LIDAR. Okay, have you all heard of LIDAR?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Rosa said, yeah, you guys have heard of it. You know, I said to people, LIDAR is not a secret anymore. People know it. How to use it maybe is a little bit different of a secret. And it's a very powerful tool. But like I told you before, there's no one tool that's perfect for everything, okay? You use a collection of tools. So what is LIDAR? LIDAR, you guys know this already, but LIDAR is an acronym for light detection and ranging. It's sometimes called laser scanning, 3D scanning. The technology uses eye-safe laser, eye-safe, so you can actually look at it, doesn't hurt you. And it gives you a 3D representation of the environment. So this is a YouTube video. I can't play the video because it'll make me leave my project, my presentation, and then come back, I'll lose you, and I don't want to lose you. But there's thousands of videos out there on LIDAR. I like visuals, like I said, because this shows you how they did it, and it's kind of neat. But this is one example of it, is that this is a LIDAR this is a jungle. And the LIDAR representation over here, you can see structures here. These different structures are actually ancient Mayan civilization. These are structures that were before not known because they were hidden in the jungle. And now they know they're there. I don't have a picture of it, but they recently did something with in Egypt where they discovered 200, I think, new pyramids that they didn't know existed using this technique. So it's just like an incredible technique for looking at disturbances in the ground. Now, people ask me, do they have that for the water? And actually they do. They call it bathymetric LIDAR. I don't think I have a slide. I'm pretty sure I don't have a slide for it. But bathymetric LIDAR is the version that they use in rivers, and they use it in the ocean to look at topographic changes in structures in the ocean. So there is a water version as well. This is something I have no expertise with it, but I've been messing around with it. Three-dimensional LiDAR. Three-dimensional LiDAR gives you these really cool representations in like a 3D look. There's a lot of different techniques with LiDAR. LiDAR is, again, a layering process when you talk about it. So this is a LiDAR map over here. This is one of those light maps that we're talking about. This is just a regular map. And I did the split screen so you can see the difference between the regular and then the LiDAR version. When you're using LiDAR, unfortunately, there's no universal LiDAR, by the way. And I claim no expertise in all the different LiDARs. A lot of states have LiDAR, not every state does. Some states have partial LiDAR. Some of the software is different from one state to another. I know Connecticut because I use it all the time and I've learned it really well, but I don't know the other states very well. And when I help people, sometimes it's hard for me because I don't know their software. And then I find out that it's like, sometimes you gotta only have partial LiDAR and you have different things. So you have to know your state. But I would do a search if you're interested in LiDAR for your state and see if they offer it, because it is a very powerful tool. Well, these are the layers that you can have. One of the ones, when you first come up with it, it comes up with the light gray canvas. But when I do it, I like to use personally, I like to use the imagery with labels, because I like to see like roads and other structures like rivers and stuff like that. It gives me a point of reference. So I kind of like to use that one. I have friends that use other ones. The topographic are popular for some people. But I personally use the imagery with labels a lot. This is just a sample of it. Picture perfect sets of stone walls and 2 cellar holes top and bottom of the yellow circle. I try to highlight it for you a little bit. But if you've never seen this before, you're looking at this and say, wow, what the heck are you looking at? When you focus on it, though, you see what I'm talking about. This little square structure, that's a cellar hole. And it's a cellar hole on LiDAR, okay? And you can see like the walls there. 2 walls are more apparent, so maybe there's 2 stone walls that you're seeing a little bit better. But I don't think this is a wagon road. I think this is an existing road that runs right by it, which makes sense. Across the street, you see these lines that are running across. These are all stone walls. This is what a stone wall looks like. So we don't know what these fields were used for. I'd have to look at the stone walls to say if they were pasture fields or crop or what they were used for. But there's a cellar hole right there. Now, granted, and I tell people this too, when you have a cellar hole like this, that's off of a main road, everybody and their brother drives by this, right? So they see it. So it's been detected most likely. That wouldn't stop me from detecting it. I would still detect it because it may, people can't get everything. They might miss something, especially if they didn't do it well. You could still find stuff. But I find like my game changer friends, the ones that are really doing this and killing it with this kind of technique, are doing cellar holes that are so far out in the woods, deep forest, that no one gets out there. Like if you have to work for it, most people don't want to, a lot of people don't want, not most, but many people don't want to do the work that's necessary. When my friend first took me out, when I told you that story before, I didn't know what to expect. I went out, he said, we're going to go with me. I'm going to take you someplace. I said, fine. So we went to like nowhere's land. I parked and we got off the road. And he said, we're going to go in here. So I said, where's the trail? He said, there is no trail. We're going to make a trail. So it's like, okay, we're going to go through the backwoods. So we started going through the woods, and it was pretty thick, but not crazy thick. But we started going through, and then we got into swamp, right? So now we're walking through the swamp. I was not dressed for the swamp. I lost my boot in the swamp. So he never lets me live this down. He could have just laughed at me and left me there, but he pulled my boot out of the swamp. So I put my boot back on, embarrassed as hell. And I kept going. And then I fell, jumping a creek. I fell and I was wearing my headphones. So I broke my headphones. So this is like insult to injury. And here we go. We keep going. And then I came to like detect your heaven. All right. A cellar hole that had not been touched for 200 years easily. We were the first people standing probably at this cellar hole. And that was like the best day detecting of my life. It almost killed me on the way there and coming back, but it was like the best day. But it told me something, like he is so successful because he does this on a regular basis. That's his thing. So, he earns it. Trust me, I felt like he earned it. But even he takes a day or 2 days now to recover after one of his, it's like Indiana Jones of the detecting world. But what I'm getting at, when they're too easy.
If it was easy to get there, everybody would have been there, right?
There you go. You called it, my friend. You called it. If it was real easy, then everyone does it. All right, so historic aerials, again, this is a real popular one, and I have a little case. I
My
want to.
favorite.
This is really, really popular. It's great. In Connecticut, we have a different version of it. I've used this one, but I use the Connecticut version. This is the Connecticut. It's Yukon again, Air Photo Archive. This is actually kind of cool. Each one of these orange dots represent a photograph that was taken by the airplane. And usually the airplanes flew at 8,000 or 35,000 feet. That's usually the height they would fly. I forgot what these were taken at. But they go back and forth and they take a picture, and then you get all these little orange dots. You notice on the right hand side the layers. So it starts. I always go back to the oldest because that'll give you like the oldest history. And so I go back to 34 is the oldest that they have, and it goes actually into the 2000s before they went into satellite imagery and other stuff. But it's really cool to see. So here's all the dots, right? So I'll give you an example of how this works. I wanted to do a search for a place that I knew was called Red Cedar Lake, because I had been researching it and I knew there was a boys camp there, and I'll talk about that in a second. And I wanted to go to the boys camp. So I knew it was in the area of Red Cedar Lake. So I typed that in and it gave me the dot where it would be. So I went to the 1934 map. Now, okay, so here's a dot, and this is like a close-up of all those dots right in the middle of Red Cedar Lake. Now they overlap by 50%, each of these dots, like the photographs. So I knew that this is basically where I wanted to be, because I wanted to see this whole area behind this key here. And one of the tips here, just if you've done this, you know this, but you have to scroll all the way to the bottom to get the maps. The maps are at the bottom, they're not at the top. You got to scroll down. And then they have like JPEGs, PNH, TIFFs, or PNGs, there's different, or PDFs. They have different formats and whatever works for you. I'll click on one. And then you get a black and white photograph. Now, I highlighted it to save a little time, but in yellow, if you can see in yellow, see that L-shaped structure there? That L-shaped structure, that's a hard word for me. L-shaped structure is the waterfront for the boys' camp. So in 1930, when this camp was created, that's where the waterfront for the boys' camp was. That's their swimming platform that they went over. So if you're into water detecting, this is a place to go, or that beach area is a place to go. So let's analyze this. What I do with these, by the way, is I print them out. The black and white photograph, I'll print it out. And I like to do this like Sherlock Holmes thing with a magnifying glass and look at it. So this is one of the problems, though, is when you blow them up, you lose the resolution, you lose the detail. So that's an advantage of maps that are made at 8,000 feet. They're a little bit sharper. The 35,000 feet, when you blow them up, they get cloudy a little bit. But this is still readable. Now, Ed, you've seen this before, maybe. So I'll call on your colleagues here. Or you feel free to say too. My question to you is, can you tell me, and you can use this bigger one, I think it's easier to see. Can you tell me where the baseball field is in this map? Use like a clock face and tell me where the baseball field is.
1 o'clock.
Right there?
Yeah.
You got it. Good eye, Rose.
And that's the infield right where the arrow is.
Can you see that there's the diamond, like the bases?
That's the infield.
The infield, and then now you got the outfield right here. See, that's all perfect, right? That was their ball field. Over here, if you look,
building, right? What's that building?
Yeah, there's a building too. See this? I'll show you. I'll highlight some stuff for you. See this right here? Anybody want to guess?
I was thinking that was a building.
No, it's not a building. This is a big plot of land.
Crop.
I'll give you a hint. It has two lines across it. It has two lines across it. Some markings on the.
Oh, football field or soccer field or play field.
No.
Huh?
You use a racket on this.
Tennis court.
It's a tennis court. That's the tennis court in 1930. So you know people play tennis here. Well, the court is hardcover, so you can't find stuff on the court. But around the court, that's where they sat. That's where they put stuff around, right? Now you're talking about buildings.
It's like here, one of the after winter time, the best place to look, Metaltech is around the edges of parking lots.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when they plow and they put all that plow stuff over there. That's a good point. Well, all right. So here's our tennis court. There's our baseball field. So now we got the ball, the two things. Look over here. Can you see these structures? Can you see 4 structures here? These are buildings. This is what the buildings look like in an aerial photograph.
I wish I could see them.
These are the cabins where they stayed. This is where some of the cabins where they stayed. What do you notice in front of it?
Another field?
Another field. That's where they played. They're kids. They played. They lost stuff in the field, right? So this is a really detectable spot. Now, it's harder to see, but if you use your imagination, you'll see a long rectangle here, then you'll see a structure, and then you see the rectangle continues down here. It's a very elongated building, and that's actually the central fireplace. This is the recreation hall. That's where they did their plays, and they did their dining hall. That was their dining hall. This is the parking lot for the dining hall area. So you get, and there's other scattered buildings. If you look around, there are other scattered buildings through here.
Kind of reminds me of Camp Mayaconda, doesn't it?
Right.
No, it's really cool, this camp. But here's the thing, this is what it looks like today. So if you didn't have that old map, if you didn't have this map to know where the battlefield is, you would have no idea today where that is. In fact, when I first walked this, I was telling somebody, when I first walked this, there's all kinds of trails here. I asked somebody, I said, where's the ball field? They said, what ball field? There's no ball field. And I said, I know there's a ball field here because I saw it on an old map. And I said, no, these are my trails and I never saw a ball field. So I started walking and I kind of knew where it was from that previous map. And I walked in that general direction. I can't tell you, I was so happy when I found it. I found a wooden backstop. You know, like the now they're all made out of metal, but this one was left, what was left of wood. When I was a kid, we used to make our own backstops out of wood,
Right.
pieces of plywood. That's what they did. They had a wooden backstop, and I found that. Now, granted, other people have found it too, and I hit it pretty hard, and I didn't find much, but it was all overgrown with trees and brush. My buddy, who's really good, went in there, and he did something I think most people don't do. Is he crawled under the brush. He went into the brush. He went under the trees, and he was finding stuff under those trees because nobody would do it. It wasn't easy to do. They didn't do it. This is the state map. They provide you with this for the trails and so forth. So this is kind of cool. Again, it gives you like ideas, like this is where the ballpark was up into here, and the trails to access. There's a lot of stuff in here. This island over here is very detectable because the boys used to use that as part of their camp outs there. I have a whole story on this one. I'll save you some time. But one of my favorite, this is one of my buddies, Ken. He's awesome. I hope he's out there. Ken with a canteen find. Whenever I go to a place like that, historic, I like to find something relevant to the area. And Ken was the only one that really found something I thought that was really cool. And it was a canteen that was probably used by the kids when they were back in the day. And that was really kind of cool that he found that. And these are my friends standing next to the foundations. You can see the foundation is still there. And that's all that's really much left of those buildings is the foundations, and they're beautiful fireplaces. And it's been hit really, really hard. These are the three amigos. All right, I added this because I think it's really, really cool to share this. And I think this is across the country, so it's not unique to Connecticut, but this one happens to be in Connecticut. And this is, again, this is my case study of using, looking at maps and photos and stuff like that to help you figure out what something is. This was an old photograph of Camp Philly, 2001 company, Haddam, Connecticut, the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps legacy. This is what the camp looked like back in the day. This is the 19, it was formed in 1933. So it was established December 9th, 1933, and it ran till 41. So that's prime silver years for sure in this camp. So this very, very much intrigued me. Well, I came across in one of the books a description of the camp. So it showed me the layout of the camp, what those buildings were. You just saw in the previous photograph. It showed a layout of those buildings. That was really kind of cool. Then I did a Google Earth picture of it, and you can see it matches up perfectly. Filey Road, Turkey Hill Road, these two roads combined. This is what it looks like today. You can't see anything there. Now you look at it here, this is using the LiDAR, and that one like rec hall or whatever that was right here shows up really well on the LiDAR, so you can see that. So now I know we pegged the camp. This is where the camp was. So we went to the camp. We found this stone. And if you read it, it says Camp Filey 1201 Company. So this was the marker for the camp. Actually, the flagpole used to be right next to this. While we were at the camp, the ranger came out. So the ranger came over and said, welcome to Camp Filey. Can we detect? No, you can't detect. There's no permission. It's historic. It was labeled a historic area. But what happened, the cool thing is, one of the gentlemen here, his father served at not this camp, but a sister camp. So they started talking, and we really hit it off with this ranger. And even though we're not able to detect it, just to be, confirm like all those maps and things that we found was really kind of cool. But what he did tell us, and this is where the point of this comes, is he said, Connecticut is full of CCC camps, and many of them are accessible. They're not registered as historic, and you can detect them. And he gave me the reference to look at those. And we're researching, we're in the process of researching which ones might be permissible, because in some areas you can detect them. And they all have basically that same format, and they're all from the 30s to the 40s. So if we get lucky, even if we only find a couple, that'll be really kind of cool. So it was from talking to the ranger, and we accepted we couldn't detect that day. It was killing us because we knew we were at the camp, but it was a good experience. Okay, move ahead. My favorite time to hunt the fields is pretty much going on right now. They're harrowing, or they're turning the fields right now. I don't know if that's the same across the country, but around here I'm seeing more and more fields that are turned right after a deep plow, especially. It's great. But there was a famous YouTuber. I'm a nobody. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows who I am. But there was a famous YouTuber out there. I think you'd recognize her. No names. But she went on record to say, "I hate fields." And it's kind of funny because I understand why she said that. And she said it because, you get something like this, you get 300 acres, 400, 500, 600 acres. You could spend the rest of your life walking that field and, not find a whole lot. And, she's absolutely right. And I agree. It would be a lot of fun, maybe walking the field, great exercise, but it's a waste of your time if you're just doing, 600 random acres. So, but by the end of her video, if you watch that, you see it. If you ever watch the end of her video, she changes her tune, and she doesn't hate fields anymore, because she hunted the field with somebody that knew how to read a field. And reading a field is like really, really important, because if you know how to read a field, you can isolate maybe that 1 acre. Maybe that's where a house was located, a farmhouse was located. And you can, focus your attention on that, where it's going to be more productive. Or you see like remnants of stuff, pottery, glass, pipe stems, all the kinds of stuff that might indicate, like shells, stuff that would indicate that there was some activity there. That's going to be more productive.
That's kind of like that. This reminds me of that location I sent you. Remember?
Yes.
I know from an old map there was a farmhouse there. There's been clay pipes found there, trade beads, silverware, pottery. I know there's a cemetery hidden in the woods somewhere. But
I apologize to you, Ed. I apologize, because I just actually, that email you sent me went to my spam folder. And when I was looking up your address today, I said, wait a second, this is what I've been waiting for from Ed, because you asked me to take a look at it. I owe you on that one, buddy. I haven't forgotten. I wanted to get through today's presentation. But it sounds like an ideal kind of location for everything that you described. And, people ask me, like, with like the LiDAR, is that the only way to go? No. Like if you did like historic aerials on this field, you can still see outlines of existing structures. The earth oftentimes has a darker color to it. Now, from repeated plowing, the dark lines sometimes get distorted. So instead of being a nice square, they can be oblong or they can be disjointed. But generally, grass and crops don't grow well where there were structures before, until they kind of like sift the soil over that. But you can get a good idea. The other tips, the other tips are, people would put their houses where they're going to be protected from floods. So higher up on a hill would be better. Needed water, so it's either going to be a well or they're going to be next to a stream, something where they could get water. So those are some of the tips you can use when you're looking for a site like that in a random field. Things you may encounter, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but respect property signs, seek permissions. Unfortunately, people have ruined stuff for other people by not seeking the permissions, and I don't agree with that. And if someone asks for my help and it's a historic battlefield, I'm not going to help you find stuff, because that's illegal. You can get in a lot of trouble for that.
Right.
Stuff like this guy, and I've known people that go into Park Service property, and that's just bad, bad for the hobby. And, people, I crossed out his eyes so we wouldn't recognize him. Somebody told me they knew who this guy was. I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But, unfortunately, we're starting to see signs like this: no digging, no metal detectors allowed. Because people are taking advantage. I lost a really good site because two guys went in, dug it up, didn't cover their holes, and didn't ask for permission on top of it, and they made a mess.
That's not good, and those people really do need to be called out.
Yeah.
They really do need to be called out because it's just affecting a larger group of people than just you and your buddies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I know you guys all agree with me. It's like preaching to the choir. You guys agree, but we got people that are doing this and they don't think. They don't think. This guy, I didn't make fun of it. I didn't mean to make fun. But man digs 12-foot deep hole without realizing his metal detector was picking up his steel-toe cap safety boots. I know that was kind of a true story, though. A true story. This happened on one of my hunts. Is that I was on a beach hunt. And this guy comes over to me, I won't embarrass him. He comes over to me and he says, Wayne, my detector's acting like really weird on the beach. And I looked down at him. I said, you got your steel toe boots on, don't you? And he had his steel toe boots on and it was screwing up his detector all over the place. So I said, take off your shoes and just go barefoot. It's a beach and you'll be fine. And he felt embarrassed because he was the only one barefoot on the beach because he wore his steel toe shoes. So people do it, you don't think, it happens. I've worn steel toed shoes.
I've had my jewelry trigger pinpointers before. Like I had to learn to take jewelry off if you're going to use pinpointers.
You notice my ring? I don't know if you can see my ring. But my wedding ring is a silicone camo wedding ring.
Yeah.
I can't wear a metal one because my pinpointer screws up. And I was so embarrassed the other day because I had a cufflink, a jacket cuff, and it had a metal button on it. And I said, I noticed something here. It keeps ringing. It was my button on my jacket. It was like, I felt like such a newbie. But all right. So here's cutting a plug and using this drop class. I know I'm teaching, like you guys know this already, but especially right now, the soils are good. They're soft. They're moist. You can dig nice plugs. You can cover it up and do really nice. In the summer, the grass dies. If you kill the grass, you get these potholes everywhere. So you really need to do a good job with plugs. And someone asked me to mention this tonight, that learn how to do good plugs, like practice before you go to someone's property.
That's the great thing about practicing plugs in your own yard.
When you can, do a plug and not see where the plug was, then you're doing a good job. But so many people, they don't do it. And I have people, here's my shout out to this, is that people think the woods are different. If you're in the woods, you have to cover your plugs too, your holes too. You can't leave holes in the woods. People hike these trails, they see these holes, it looks like a minefield in the woods. That's wrong, and we see too much of it. People leave the garbage, they don't take their garbage, they leave the hole open. It's just really, really bad. So, I wish we could spread the message, but when we see it, it's like, police it ourselves. All right, safety. Be careful out there. Again, someone asked me to talk about safety. Some people, I call it lone wolf. They like to hunt by themselves, and I respect the fact that there is something to be said about being in the woods or being out by yourself. And it's kind of like, just a getaway, and I totally understand that. But minimally, you should let someone know where you are. One of my friends was wearing a really cool thing. They call it a runner's bracelet. It has his name and ID on it. So if he was, something happened to him out there, they find his body, at least they can know who it is or who to call. If you have a wallet, someone's probably going to steal your wallet or your ID. You may not want to carry it with you. So, having that wrist thing, I thought was kind of a cool idea. They call it a runner's thing. I thought that was kind of cool. But at least letting someone know where you are. Know your surroundings. I have a checklist I keep on the group side of things to bring, and it depends where you're going. I mean, if you go into the deep woods, you want to make sure you can get out of those woods. I personally prefer being with a buddy. For me, I'm at a point in my career that I enjoy being with people more than just hunting by myself. And it's not about what the finds are. It's just making memories and taking photos and finding stuff. So I like it with friends. These are my two budding detectives. This is my sons, Chris and Matt. I'm glad they got into detecting too. They're doing pretty good. They're out detecting me some days, so they're doing really good, and they seem to be into it. So I'm psyched that they're helping.
Right on.
And they're carrying it on. These are just some quick shout outs. To me, what's more important than the treasures, and I think you relate, finds or excitement is the memories and friendships we established along the past. These are what's priceless. You know, I take more photographs now than I used to, and it's just because I like to have these memories. You know, you forget. And it's nice
Well,
to have the memories.
we like to say the gold is the bonus. The real treasure is the people we're with and the friends we make.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. That's really cool. And that's absolutely, and you hit it on the head. I mean, that's exactly it, you know.
Well, don't get us wrong. We like our gold too.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I'm happy for my friends when they find stuff, but I also like to find stuff too. I'll be honest with you, but I'm just as happy when they do. This is kind of cool. This is part of our crew. There are a couple of hot tickets in here. This is a really kind of, I mentioned this because it was really cool. You don't see this too often. It was a Virgin Boy Scout camp. After doing some research on it and to old camps, I found this one, and it was definitely Virgin because the parade field had so many coins, like it was like early 1900s coins scattered throughout. Everyone killed it that day. Silver, old coins. Everyone had a great time, and I was glad everyone was with me. You know, people said, "Wait, why didn't you just go by yourself? You could have cleaned up." Yeah, I could have cleaned up, but it was more fun having, you know, everyone share. There was plenty to share, and I had a good time. So I could have kept it a secret, and I didn't. This is something that just happened. I hit this place 30 years ago, all right, more than 30 years ago, and I knew it was there. And it was back to Civil War era bullets. These are three ringers. That was a target field. There was a gun manufacturing site in this town, and this is where they did their practice shooting. And in the woods, bullets were everywhere. It was like picking cherries. So these guys, they never did this before. So I said, "Come with me. It's a great time. It's winter, but it's a great time because this is all swamp. You can't walk in here. Once the mosquitoes start, once the swamp is there, you can't walk in here." So we went in and everyone would get their share. Jerry got a whole bunch of them. But I respect these guys because after they found, I think it was like maybe 10, they all decided to quit. And they said, "We've got enough." You know, they could have just kept going and kept digging because they were everywhere. They said, "Let's bring some other people, like bring more people from the club so they could share this." And it's a great site for beginners because you're going to find stuff and it's old stuff. And it's a good place to learn your detectors. So I respect all these guys, you know, Scott and Jerry and Cliff, because they got enough bullets and they stopped. It was the same thing when we did the 50 calibers. They guys got a bunch of them and they stopped. But it was a lot of fun. And you know, people said Civil War stuff. We don't find the actual battles, three ringers, because we're not in that area. There's no battles here. We'll find musket balls, but we won't find, you know, stuff like this. So this is kind of special to me. They're not real Civil War used in the Civil War, but they were practice ammunition. That was kind of cool. This is the president of my club. I gotta tease him. I promised I would get back at him. He's the one that gave me the pirate name, Andy. Andy's like an amazing guy. He's like a brother I never had. Andy has been the president for our club for as long as I know. He's a pretty famous guy. He's been on TV. He's done some stuff on TV for like fighting Captain Kidd's Treasure, and he'd be a great speaker for you. He's full of stories. You think I have stories? This guy's got more stories than I've ever heard. He's also writing an article for something now. He's a really nice guy. He's very humble and he's really good. But I got back at him. I photoshopped his picture into a Johnny Depp's pirate costume. So that's Captain Andy. Arr, I got you, Andy. I didn't wear my pirate mask today, but I had it waiting here. And this is our newest mascot on our group site. This is Peg, our mascot. These two guys are just a shout out because they're amazing. This is the guy that found that parasol thing I told you. Dan, you're an amazing guy. Your accomplishments speak. He's been Detectorist of the Year. The guy's simply amazing. Multiple times. He did it with an entry-level detector, so he knew his stuff and he was really good. I'll show you in a second. I'll make fun of him and I in a second. One of the things we have in common is we hate bugs. I can deal with like all kinds of stuff. I can deal with snakes and spiders. I can deal with all that stuff. I just hate ticks. I hate ticks and I hate mosquitoes. I actually hate them. And he helped me. I'll show you why. Seth, this is the most amazing guy I've ever met. And humble, 30 years I've known him. He is so enthusiastic. You can find a nail, and Seth will be, awesome, this is great. We can date the site now. We know what that nail is. And he gets really excited for you. Like you can find, very, very limited things, and he gets really excited for you. The funny thing with Seth is he just went home. I took him to the site. He just went home afterwards because he was still itching to detect. So he did his yard. And it's funny because we traveled like 2 hours to go to the site. And in his backyard, he was finding all this cool stuff. And he's like, hey, traveled 2 hours, and in my backyard, I had all this stuff. So he's just amazing. He's also an arrowhead magnet. So if any of you are into Native American points, I just go with him just for luck, because wherever he goes, he finds them. He's just in tune with the ground. He's just simply amazing. These are our head attire. Okay, we're doing a fashion. These you can make fun of them, but they work. And Dan bought it first. He bought like a 5-pack, and he shared one. I said, "Oh, these are so cool." And we're getting to the time now when the mosquitoes are starting, and it's almost no fun when they're biting you and you will get into your face. So these are headgear. They're really cool. They actually work. This is a shout out to some recent friends. This is Hollywood Joe. Ed, you'd recognize Hollywood. He was part of the Copperheads and so forth. John, you may not recognize. John is a new friend of mine. I met him through Joe. This is actually where I got my Civil War button, right behind us here. It was right underneath that pine tree. I got a Civil War button, which was kind of cool for me. And it was Joe that invited me here. This is an old former Boy Scout camp. But I wanted to give a shout out to Joe and ambient girl Nancy. You're amazing. Nancy found her first Real recently, so I know she's excited about that. I hope she's out there. Shout out to Nancy. They gave me my first break on the internet talking, so thank you. You guys are the best. John is a new friend that's connecting me. My new venture in life, with my detecting anyway, is like I said, trying to share the message and help people, but also do some archaeological work with archaeologists, because it's almost like a nemesis relationship. It's like a love-hate. They don't like us more normally, but we found a few archaeologists that actually like metal detectors, and they recognize that we can do stuff that they can't do, and they can't just buy a detector and go out and find stuff. And John was working as a battle in Connecticut, that he was working with the archaeologists to outline the battle by the way they're finding the bullets. And he connected me with that archaeologist. So I'm hoping to get a grant this year, and it'll give us access to sites that we normally wouldn't get access to. We may have to turn this stuff over to them, and that's okay. There's only so much stuff you can collect, but to find it and help is a really cool thing. So I look forward, and I thank John for letting me do that. And he's been doing really good lately, just regular detecting. This is I don't know if this is my second gig that I did on the internet, was for Larry. He put this together for me, and I just want to give him a shout out. He's the man. I don't know if you guys know Larry Rivera, but he does Sodbusters. He's like the mind lab expert, as far as I know. He knows the mind lab, and he's well known for that. You Google mind lab and it comes up his stuff. So he's like, awesome. Larry, you've been a friend and you've been helping me a lot. He helped me do like my YouTube channel, get it started, and he did so much for me. So thank you, Larry. My favorite philosophies is give a person a fish and feed them for a day, teach them to fish, feed them for life. Metal detecting, give a person a site, make them happy for a day, teach them how to research and find their own sites, and give them a game changer experience. And that's what I was hoping to accomplish today by sharing these research tools with you guys. I hope you find it's a game changer. I think it can be. Again, I can't promise you treasure, but I think if you use some of these tools, and many of you are already, and expand your toolbox, there's so much more out there. I want to thank everyone for attending. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will check out my Facebook group. It's a new group. It's Game Changers. And like I said, our philosophy is to share. That's the whole idea, to work together. I hope, by offering more presentations and other streams, anyone, I'll talk to anybody that wants to listen. So if you know anyone that's looking for someone to talk, I love talking, as you can tell. I set up an email site. This is a QR code. If you scan that, it'll pop up my email, which is WA-detect4you Gmail. That's my detecting email. This is the QR code for the Facebook group. Like I said, it's basically Game Changers. If you do Facebook groups, I apologize. This is my shout out to my stuff. And then the
Wondering when
last
you're
slide.
gonna get to you.
This is a brand new thing. Thanks to Larry and others for encouraging me. I only have like 44 subscribers, so it'll probably take me years and years to ever see that grow, but I'm hoping to get the word out. I'm up to about 8 videos now. Some of them are shorter. I found like the shorter ones seem to have more views. I can understand why. The longer ones, I give you credit for staying awake this long with me. Thank you. And spending the evening with me. But there's all different things here. Most of these topics that I've been offering, like test gardens, are things that people have requested from me. Like they want to know, like, how do you set up a test garden? And there's some tricks to doing that. You know, a lot of people don't realize how many tricks there are. How to do field hunts, because like I said, I do hunt master stuff. So this is how to do seeded fields, as tricks and tips for that. Some people don't like me giving away those tips, but I talk about some of them here. And also to give fairness to the beach guys and beach ladies is how to do like a beach hunt. There's tricks that you can do there. Is what these tips are. This was the research methods, some of the stuff I talked about today. This is also historic aerials, just a short focus on that. And this was about some of the game changers I talked about. So those are some of the videos I have. I'm up to about 8 videos. I've been trying to do one a week, but you know, it's like an ongoing process. And this is the link to it. It's again, YouTube research game changer. And that's it, guys. That's it. I still have a voice left. I'll give you that. And you guys are still awake. Look at that.
Yeah, I'm still awake. We've been sitting here listening.
Well, I probably went over. I'm almost at 2 hours and 50 minutes, I guess. But
not bad for a 2-hour show.
Well, I warned Nancy and I warned Joe for their 1 hour show. I couldn't do it in an hour. And they said, fine, no problem. And then I warned Larry that I went to 2 hours. He said, that's a 2 hour show. That's great. No problem. So I did like 2.5, and I kind of topped that with you guys. So thank you.
But you're not the record, so.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't trying to set any records. I just I just wanted to share what I could. But thank you for the opportunity.
A lot of interesting stuff you talked about, and a lot of us, like you said, we just, you know, especially with the LiDAR, a lot of that we talk about that often. It's always here. It's always good to hear another perspective, another way of looking at it. And the other thing too, I didn't realize that there was different forms of LiDAR that they use across the country. You know.
Yeah, I wish there was a universal like software for it, but there's not. And some of them, I don't know, like in your states, mine maybe because I use it all the time, like it's very familiar to me. I'm still learning it, but I can use it. You know, I can get by with it. Other states, you know, I was trying to help Nancy up in New Hampshire, and it took me I was up all night one day trying to figure out her LiDAR because she had a really cool field, and I was trying to find a barn in the field for her, and then we were able to find it. But it took me all night to figure out her LiDAR because it's a different system, you know. So I appreciate it. Was there anything you wanted me to talk about that I didn't talk about? I don't know if there was something.
No, you actually answered most of the questions that I saw in the chat room.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think Ert might have asked about any ghost experience in there somewhere.
Yeah, when you were.
Yeah, that's always one of those subjects that we kind of touch on a little bit, because there's always weird experiences and happenings while you're out there. So yeah.
I didn't have that slide in there, but there is a slide one of my friends sent me of an abandoned house that there was no window there, but there was an apparition in where the window used to be. And he took a picture of it, and you can see the outline of a figure, and there's no window, but there was an outline. And the other day he was telling me he had these like mists following him around this area. It was an old colonial settlement.
Ert Radio, there's a guy that you want to be on his show. He talks about that stuff.
Yeah, my friend is really into that. I've been spooked. I've been spooked once. There was it's actually a ghost town. You don't think of ghost towns in Connecticut, but we have a ghost town here. And
we have all over here too.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't know it unless you do the research.
Yeah, the one I found was like 72 cellar holes. They're not detectable because it's private property and they won't
Right.
let you detect. I tried, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't let me in. But that was eerie because when I was walking through there, it's like I don't know, maybe it's just the wind and everything, but it was kind of it was spooky. I
Well, how
definitely
about
wouldn't want to.
Sasquatch? Aren't you in the Sasquatch area?
Yeah, one of my friends believes in it. I don't know.
We do have a question
I,
from David
everyone
Villa.
has their opinion. I respect that.
Wayne.
Well, I guess
Wait.
that would probably be it. Where'd Ed go? Oh,
I'm here. I'm here. I
okay.
forgot I was on mute on Zoom. But I'm like, geez. David V has a question. Where would you love to detect anywhere in the world? And usually we ask this type of question. Rose does most
That's
of the
Rose's
time.
hypothetical.
Yeah, if you had no bars, no limits, no worries of expense or anything, where in the world would you like to take your lifestyle of metal detecting and treasure hunting?
That's an easy answer. The because I would love to go. I would want to do England. Um, I just think there's so much history there. You know, it makes us pale in comparison. Um, I've only found one Roman coin in my detecting over the 37 years, and I've only seen one other Roman coin found. And the Roman coin I found was in a seated hunt, and that was like so amazing because like people like I actually did a talk about this. Like some people don't like seated hunts because it's not natural, and I understand that. And but where else would I have found a Roman coin? Because I'm probably not going to go to England anytime soon. So that was my Roman coin. But to answer your question, to go there and just like I know there's all those treasure trove laws, and you probably have to turn over everything you have. But we've been actually talking about. I know Joe is actually. If you ask Joe that question, I think Joe's planning to go next year to England. That's going to be like an amazing
I
experience.
think he
So
brought something up like that. Him and Deej, our friend Digging with Deej, also has
It's
England on the calendar.
so
always been kind of strange
that
to me
that that would
that
be my answer for worldwide. In the
yeah.
United States,
Why not? Why
it
not
would be
Rome?
what's
If
that?
you're looking for Roman coins, why not Rome?
Rome. I'd be afraid of all the unexploded ordnance there from World War II. Uh, I have family. My wife has family in Italy, and I don't know that you can detect legally there. I don't think you can. I don't know the laws there specifically, but a lot of people die from the unexploded ordnance that's still in the ground there. So I don't know that I would want to do that. But the Romans were everywhere. The fact is
Right.
they
Well,
were
I know
spread out.
that.
I would
So
expect more of that being a Cambodia and Vietnam worry over Italy
No,
worry.
no, because actually they still find unexploded ordnance in England also.
Yeah, and like Germany and
Sure. Anywhere they're
yeah,
willing to do that.
But
true, true.
in the United States, I would love to do Civil War because I've never done Civil War. And the other would be water hunting the Treasure Coast in Florida. I would like to do
Yeah.
that. That would be the other because there's a really cool. I don't know if you guys watch Oak Island, but there's like Beyond Oak Island, and I'm not a big Oak Island person. Like I don't follow it like religiously or anything. A lot of people I know do, but I did see one episode that was Beyond Oak Island that they did the Treasure Coast, and what a fascinating story that was. I would love to do that down there. So that would be water detecting. But
That'd be
how about you
cool.
guys? What's on your wish list?
Australia,
Austria.
Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Are you talking the gold prospecting aspect?
Yeah,
Alaska, definitely.
Yeah. Isn't there a
Alaska,
show?
Australia.
Is that show legitimate about the Alaskan gold? Is that like legit? I saw a show.
There's several shows on that, and there's a little bit of
And it's
legitibility.
mainstream TV and it's all about drama.
Yes,
The-
yes.
the
The
people are
producers
real.
want the drama. The
Yeah, the
people
people
are
are
real.
real. The people are real. The storyline's real. The drama's drama.
It's it's Hollywood, right? It's just Hollywood.
It's produced that way. But I mean, you know, like I said, they actually are out there doing that. They're actually out there getting the gold, and that all that is real. But it's just a produced show, like any other TV show. Um, and they're all, you know, all those shows are like that. That's reality TV for you.
Drama sells, you know.
Drama sells.
It's like watching a train wreck, or why do people go to car races?
Right.
It isn't to watch them drive around in a circle, it's to watch them crash. So,
So how about Rose and Dana? Where would you like to detect if you had anywhere?
I would really like the UK or England as well for mudlarking, magnet fishing, or detecting. In any of those, I think that England is definitely hands down. But I would also love like a Scotland or Ireland because of the scenery too. Like I would not complain.
Yeah, I love castles and stuff like that.
yeah.
That's one thing I didn't talk about. But are you guys? I just got into magnet fishing. I think that's kind of cool. I haven't had much luck, but I think it's really cool.
Stick to them bridges and keep looking because you'll find it. You'll find your spot.
Well, that's a good sign. That means your waterways are clean. You don't
Yeah.
have a bunch of trash in them.
Yeah, I drag it behind the kayak sometimes, and you know I get a lot of fish hooks and stuff like that.
Yep.
But for Christmas, I gave both my sons a magnet kit, so they it would be like a family event to do.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's more like we've all talked about it. You talked about it earlier, but treasure hunting in a group or together has it in my opinion is more fun. It's just more fun that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I don't know much about magnet fishing. I haven't gotten anything good.
I agree with you there, Rose. Sometimes it's a lot less productive,
Right.
but it's a lot more fun. But
That's funny. So how about you, Dan? Where would you like to detect?
Oh no, I'd say it'd probably be Australia if I had a choice where you can still find that big gold.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Or some untouched ground out west somewhere if you could find that.
Yeah.
Do you all use metal detectors for gold at all, or
Oh yes.
Yep.
I found a nugget a couple years ago in California. Ed and Jesse did too with our detectors.
Yeah,
Nice.
Jesse found 3 nuggets. He's gonna show you right now.
I'm going to show you right now because they're really handy.
Oh
Those I
wow,
found.
that's impressive.
They're a gram each. Oops, going the wrong way.
Wow, that's serious. Wow.
I
fun.
found 3 nuggets that trip. Dano found a couple, didn't you?
I found one that day. But
Yeah.
altogether, the group that went, we found over an ounce of gold that day, metal detector.
Ounce and a quarter, I think it was, that we hiked out with. That was a great day with 3 other YouTubers, good friends now.
See, and I'm really happy anywhere in the United States prospecting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have, first of all, I'm familiar with it, you know, and I don't have to worry about other things that I got to worry about in other countries. So, having been to other countries, I like this country probably the best.
Right. I definitely want to see all mine before I worry about globetrotting.
But I would definitely love to go to Australia to metal detect for gold, that without a doubt.
Absolutely. If it would work out.
Oh yeah, gold, dig some opals maybe, and
Ooh, some opals.
There's plenty of this country still to see that I ain't seen.
Right. I agree there, Dano. Wayne, I've loved your presentation. I know a lot of our audience got a kick, enjoyed it. And there were quite a few comments about new subscribers, so you might have grown a little bit over the past couple hours.
I'm indebted to you internally.
Just start putting more of those videos out, you know.
And you never know, next time the Flash crew or any one of us are up in the New England area, maybe we'll hit up a guy in Connecticut.
Well, you haven't. You guys have an open invite. I just don't know it. I forgot to tell about that. The LiDAR, and you guys would know this maybe. The LiDAR application in Connecticut, they found a mine shaft using the LiDAR, which was something they have been looking for, and they had a
Oh,
hard
yeah.
time. And they used the LiDAR for that. So that was something in Connecticut that I meant to mention because that was my only experience with mining, and they found that mine shaft, which was kind of cool.
They start using it all over. They'll be finding mine shafts and mines and
all kinds of stuff all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I've been a fan of LiDAR for a few years now since I started checking what they were doing with it.
We have a friend, Matt, and a fellow YouTuber and gold prospector and a geologist. He's really big into LiDAR, using it as a research tool and just strip away all the underbrush and canopy, and you can tell more what you're looking like that area you showed with all those. I take it they were rock walls, and
Yep.
I know in New England, I've lived in Mass, New Hampshire, New York, and I know there's rock walls all throughout the woods and stuff.
Yeah.
They were placed there for a reason.
They like their rock walls. They like to mark their property.
Right.
You know what's amazing? Amazing. I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but most of those walls were built like in 60 years. They did it like really crash because they deforested everything, so they ran out of timber, which they used for the walls originally, and then they started using it for the rocks. But I guess it was like sheep fever. I'd never heard this before. Have you guys heard of Tim Wessel? Have you ever heard of him?
Don't ring a bell.
I would recommend. I mean, he's a New Hampshire guy, but he does this thing called Reading the Forest. He has a whole series, but I always shout him out because you'll never walk into a forest the same way again. Like when you listen to this guy, like he explains like how you can interpret the walls, why they were there. Was it pasture? Was it hay fields? Guy Tim Wessel.
Does he have a YouTube channel?
He has a bunch of YouTube videos. It's called Reading the Forest. I can send. I'll send the link to you. Everyone that I've shared that with, they said this guy is like amazing. Like you never walk in the forest the same way. And
I watch a guy, Green Mountain Detective.
Yeah, Brad, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like his stuff.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff. Yeah, he's up in Vermont. He's good. I don't know him personally. He doesn't know me, but I know he does some nice stuff. I like watching his stuff. But this
very informative. He's very informative. He tells you, helps you, teaches about the history of the area. And what you were just saying is just talking about the same thing up there. Most of the forests and stuff that you have is fairly new growth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's
cool. It's been 3 hours, Ed.
Yeah, I have to wake up really early, and so does Dano and Rose. Jesse fortunately gets to sleep in, but he's earned it.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
I can speak for our audience, our Flash fam, and me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Very
how many people did
informative.
you have? How many people signed in tonight?
Well, our peak was at 42.
Okay.
But
that's mostly my family, right? So.
No, you consistently held a crowd of over 25 to 30 all night. So
wow,
25 are still here with us and for the long haul.
Shout out to you guys.
That's not counting our not our trolls. Our lurkers.
Our lurkers.
Our lurkers who don't who don't chat, so they're not counted in the chat room. So we probably got a couple hundred views on this already.
Yeah, 195 views
Right.
so far. So,
Cool.
and I recommend if you're just hopping in it now, go back to the beginning later on after YouTube renders it. Watch the whole thing and leave a comment down below and hit that like button. But Wayne, I thoroughly enjoyed having you come on. It was well worth my wait. Our wait. Rose, good to have you back, sis. And same with you, Dano Bro.
Nice
Jesse,
to meet you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you all.
I hope we see you in our live chat sometime, and maybe we could have you on again someday in the future.
Yeah, I'll get some new material for you, some new stories.
Very good.
I'll check out.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, I'll leave because you guys might want to have your own personal time too. So I'll let you guys go.
Yeah, you have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
It was honor meeting you all. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Now, all of our friends and family out there, the Flash fam, if you're new here, I hope you become part of us and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Next week on Tuesday Night Hangout Live is Open Line Tuesday as we end this month. Maybe Rose will have a whatchamacallit or something, or we'll see what happens. Maybe some show and tell, and hopefully when we open the lines, we'll have one of you come in and join us. I really enjoyed tonight's show. It was a good, informative show. Thank you all. Thank you, Terry, Radio, Partridge Family Prospecting, Give It Via, Bill, Ohio Relic Hunter, Robert DePatti, BC Trails, all of you. Thank you all so very much. We still have 9 spots available, 8 spots available left for Flash Bash. Don't forget the Golden Treasures Show, May 14th and 15th at the Ohio State Fairgrounds and Expo Center. Anything else, guys?
I covered everything.
You got the gold show in there, so we're good with that.
Right. I know Kevin wanted us to bring it up a bit. So we hope to see you there. I think Rose might even be doing a seminar on magnet fishing. Maybe.
Get the word out. Spread the word.
Spread the word. All right, everybody. Until next time, may you always have a flash in your pen.
You know what he's doing. Oh, sorry.
You both, you know it. You never know. Maybe one day too will meet you on the river or a bridge or field. Never know. Good night, everybody. God bless. Love you all. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, it sure is better than in my pants, huh? Good night, everybody. It does happen. That's right, JP.
4, 3, 2, 1.
See you soon.